Welcome everybody. We are here in the Central West and capital of chess in America. Happy Easter to all of our viewers. My name is Alejandro Ramirez, here with Yasser Seirawan.
Happy Easter, Alejandro. Championship rounds. What can we say?
Round. We're here in Today in Chess. We are covering the candidates tournament going on right now in Moscow, in Russia, to determine the challenger for the world champion Magnus Carlsen in November. Incredibly exciting stuff.
Absolutely, and these the championship rounds, and what a group of players at the top. Who would have thought that after, well, 12, marathon games, we'd be in a situation where literally we can't call a winner.
Not
even
at
close.
All. Let's take a look at those standings going into round 13. Sergei Karyakin and Fabiano Caruana both have 7 points. There is a mistake here on the graphic. This is after 12 rounds. Hikaru Nakamura so this is the update actually. The Hikaru Nakamura did beat Vachier-Lagrave. So with one extra game, Hikaru Nakamura in his pocket, 6.5 points. Hikaru Nakamura. Anand also has 6.5 points, but his result is pending. Also pending are the games between Peter Sviler and Fabiano Caruana, Anish Giri and Anand. Levon Aronian is currently playing Sergei Karyakin. He is on 50%, 6 points. Vachier-Lagrave having probably the worst tournament ever.
Yeah, I can't recall a player of his caliber doing this badly on a big stage event.
Oh, huge moment for him to blunder so badly. And, well, it's been a tough day. Maurice, what happened today?
Well, we are in the penultimate round. The players know they have rounded the bend and they can see the finish line. This is a critical round. For me, it's always a big one in any tournament because it's the one where you solidify your chances going into the last round. Well, let's take a look at the results. 3 of them still pending right now in Moscow, but one, Hikaru Nakamura with the win with the black pieces against a hapless Vachier-Lagrave, who has played miserably throughout the tournament. He has only 4 points out of 13. This will be an event he will want to erase from his memory. Nakamura, on the other hand, having surged back, winning 2 games, bringing his score to 50%, can say at least he's had a decent result here in the tournament. But that's irrelevant. Those 2 players are mathematically eliminated, and it's all to play for at the top. With those insights, here's Grandmaster Eric Hansen.
Thank you, Maurice. I mean, there's been a reoccurring theme round after round this tournament. Who is going to put everything together and have a consistent performance? So far, I mean, no player has really stood.
Well, we have some technical difficulties there with Eric Hansen's microphone, but we'll get right on that. Apologies for that. Let's take a look at the format that these players have over in Moscow. What is going on in this tournament? They're playing in a double round robin format. That means each player will play against each other twice, once with white and once with black. Time control quite long for one of these tournaments. 100 minutes for the first 40 moves. When that threshold is reached, 50 extra minutes until they reach move 60, at which point they get another 15 minutes, and all throughout they have 30-second increments. That's a very long time control. Plenty of energy being expended in Moscow. I mean, these guys must be tired. This is round 13.
Yes, but look what they're playing for. I mean, the winner is going to be the challenger to Magnus Carlsen. We know that's going to be at least $1 million match, but they also have some money up.
Yeah, I've heard a lot more than that, but the candidates itself has plenty of money. $107,000 going to the winner. The winner's going to be investing that and more into his seconds going for the match against Carlsen. 8th place, I mean, $19,000. Well, Topalov might be able to pay his seconds with that. It seems like he's mathematically almost in last. I think he is mathematically last already.
Clear.
Yeah, that is clear. So everything, all the other prizes still to be played. And, well, we have 2 people currently tied for first place. That means that we need to see what happens if they end up tied at the end of the tournament. Okay. There will be no playoff barring certain conditions are met. Okay. First, we're going to mathematical playoffs. First one is head-to-head.
Which makes most sense.
Which makes a lot of sense. That means individual results between the players. If, for example, Fabiano and Anand finished at the very top, it will be Fabiano that goes ahead because Fabiano scored 1.5 to half against Anand in their individual matches.
Exactly.
Now, saying that that is equal, we go to the second tie break. That would be player with the most number of wins in the tournament. You could also call it the number of losses in the tournament, which is a more controversial type of system, as it favors decisive results but not necessarily good chess. And lastly, if those were still tied, the Sonnenborg-Burger would be used, a mathematical complex formula that determines how strong the opponents that you beat were in the tournament, or at least in this specific tournament. If those are still tied, we will go into a playoff. We had the graphic that said it was a rapid playoff. If that's tied, we still go into a blitz playoff. If that's tied, we keep playing blitz.
And pairs of games.
Pairs of blitz, yes.
Until
so one's
there's
with white,
one
one's with
winner.
black, until there's a winner.
Wow, and all for the challenger, for the championship. Hopefully, Eric's mic'd in.
Yeah, hopefully.
All good over here, guys.
Well, we're here. We're here together. Eric, this has been an incredible tournament. 13 rounds of chess now being played. This round 13. The longevity. The players have to have some kind of real stamina to be able to compete over this stretch. Who do you think is going to be the fittest going into the next two rounds, as Karyakin, Anand, and Giri even, and also Fabiano, of course, jockey for position?
Well, in general, I've been, favoring Fabiano. He's been really resilient here. We've heard a few comments from his manager, about his regime. But one thing for sure is Sergei Karyakin, since he's been a kid, has been a winner. He has a lot of tournament wins. That's one thing. I mean, he'll either get first or fourth or something, but he goes out for the win. So it's still looking like a two-horse race for me, but it's like not clear. I mean, nobody's really put in a solid, audition and saying, I am the clear candidate. Right now, it's a mix of nerves, preparation, blunt. It's the most, one thing I'll say is the most exciting tournament I've got to follow since I started playing chess in terms of picking a world championship challenger.
Pretty incredible. I mean, we've seen interesting ones, of course, when Magnus qualified to play Anand. That was pretty exciting as well.
That was very
and full of nerves.
Yeah.
But this one, it just seems like it has all the stories, topsy-turvy, crazy tournament, but it's solidifying, as you said, at least at the very top. There just looks like about 4 players who could really do it. Although there's some even dark horses here, it looks like some math could favor Aronian even, maybe a massive tie. It seems hard to believe that's really possible. But if we just take a look at the situation right now, it does look like it's Karyakin who is in a great situation with those tie breaks. That's complicated tie break formula we saw. Karyakin is favored. How do you feel about this system that decides the world champion on tie breaks? I mean, the challenger on tie breaks.
I'm not a big fan of the system since I think the field is so equal and everyone gets one black, one white. I would like to see something a bit more definitive, because really at the top level, enough cannot be said about, Karyakin has such a large advantage right now because he has a tiebreak advantage. He will have white against Caruana. Beating a top 10 player with black on demand, it is so hard, no matter if you're Magnus Carlsen or whoever.
Winning with white on demand is hard enough, much as both with the black color.
So, objectively, for sure, Sergei Karyakin has a serious edge right now because he does not have that pressure. He's very comfortable, at least with white.
Tough situation indeed for Caruana, but results pending today. Because tomorrow will be a huge matchup with the two leaders playing, at least the current two leaders, playing in the last round against each other. You see there Sergei Karyakin with the white pieces. Absolutely. Anand and Giri also in the mix. Giri, no doubt, happy to be playing Topalov, but he's got to defeat Anand if he's going to have virtually any chance. If he does not defeat Anand today and those two top players stay at their score, Giri will be done. So he must defeat Anand today to have a chance if Sergei Karyakin or Caruana does not lose. So all to play for still as we continue round 13 of the most important chess tournament in the world.
Thank you, guys. I mean, it sounds intuitively obvious to say that Karyakin, because of his inside track on the tie breaks, gives him an edge. But in truth, the computer simulations said that coming in today's round, Fabiano actually had an edge over Karyakin because of the possibility that Vachier-Lagrave might win and tie for first, in which case in the head-to-head scores, it would have been Fabi who had the inside track.
Yeah, that's
so it's a really weird system that can cause all kinds of controversial games.
It's very important for the viewers to understand that if Anand wins and
Ties.
catches both Fabiano and Karyakin, it's not Anand that benefits.
Right.
It's Caruana that benefits, because in their head-to-head match, Karyakin and Anand split 1 win each.
Right.
Fabiano and Anand, Fabiano won 1.5. If Karyakin and Fabiano draw the last remaining game, let's say Anand also draws and they all tie for first after the last round, Fabiano has the best tie breaks.
Right.
If you take Anand out of the equation, for example, he doesn't win today,
Right.
or he wins today and loses tomorrow,
Then Karyakin
then it's
shoots.
Karyakin that shoots ahead in mathematical tiebreak.
Shall we go to the game? But what happened today with
We do have one game.
Vesselin?
It's probably
Just
not what everybody was paying attention to,
Clear.
but
It wasn't-
it finished in a flurry. I mean, everybody's still fighting, and Topalov has been blown off the board.
Right. Well, you know, we've been talking about nerves and preparation, and we think about Vachier-Lagrave. We say he's one of the best prepared players in the world. It got to this critical position, and I think Vesselin simply made a finger failure. I think his intention in this position had been to play b4, bishop to b6, and only in this position capture the pawn. Instead, he captured the pawn first, and Maurice and Eric will explain why this was a terrible choice.
Well, certainly the alternative here, as you mentioned, Yaz, was excellent, just fine for white. But can you imagine this trade, then b4, Eric seriously allowing this shot d4, very well known. How can you explain Topalov letting this position occur? This guy's one of the best players in the world. I understand he's tired. But, I mean, this just, the way he played this game and the way he lost, I could have lost like this. I mean, any of us could have been sitting down and playing as opposed to a world-class, a former world champion, Vachier-Lagrave.
Yeah, I really don't have an explanation. It's clearly just he got the move order mixed up because it's a very, very well-known position opening, which he's had himself numerous times. But the main point, once again, is how quickly he went down. That's just inexcusable. I mean, it went just straight downhill. There was not a patch in the game where there was a bit of a struggle. He got a bad position. You know, it's one of those things, you get very frustrated when you're playing chess and you know an opening so well, you know it by heart, and just you either touch the wrong, you just get the move order confused and you know it instantly, and you end up suffering for the rest of the game. Trying to recover from that is still a struggle for a lot of players, but for a guy like Vachier-Lagrave, who is so experienced, you would think he would be able to compose himself after such an opening slip up, because it's not the end of the world yet.
By the way, it's coming off the rest day. It's not as though you could say, well, he's really, really tired right now. He had a full day of rest. He knew he would have the white pieces. If I were him, I'd probably go to the movies, take a swim or whatever, just to relax. And then to come off the rest day and come and make such an error, not refresh for the battle with the white pieces, to give after exactly 10 moves black, just a very simple position to play, and then to play horribly after that, it's pretty stunning.
No, it's this game to me looks like it was, quite frankly, like the easiest game of the tournament. Nakamura must be just wishing that he had Topalov with black earlier in the tournament.
And certainly he also had a very easy game as well. I believe it was against Anand. So he's played and defeated two of the veterans of the event, but he made it look so easy. And you would think if, like you said, Nakamura just hadn't played some bad chess before, he'd be in contention right now. He's at 50%. That's got to be surprising for all of us watching, that Nakamura, after playing so poorly in the event, is now at 50% and like, it's just another tournament.
I've been banking on him the whole event, but I still have to say I'm surprised that in the way it came. He has a high winning rate. He is able to win games. Like, he's willing to take risks and do the necessary things it takes to win games, but he wasn't even forced to do that in these. These were both opening preparations.
I think the critical point here to note is that Nakamura came in putting so much pressure on himself in the tournament that now that there is no pressure at all, you're seeing Nakamura, a very relaxed player. He can just play chess. He can be aggressive. He can play whatever he wants. He's prepared. But when he, in the beginning stages of the event, when he was thinking, no, it all matters. This is the biggest thing I can do. This may be my last real shot or a real juicy shot at winning this challengers cycle, the candidates, and that put so much pressure on him that he messed up. Now it looks like the U.S. champion is back and showing his stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank
Before we
you.
continue analysis of the game, let's first remind the viewers that we have a phone number that you can reach us at to join the conversation. We have it on the screen on a second. And we do have a call, actually, just off the bat. Hello, if we can.
Hi. How are we doing today?
We're good.
Very good. How are you? Who do I have the pleasure of speaking to?
My name is Scott. I'm calling from Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
From Wisconsin. Well, hello, Scott. Tell us about your comment or question.
Well, I was very curious about how, as we analyze our games using computer engines, we come across amazing attacking ideas, but we don't see as much defensive resources. I was wondering if that's part of, going to be part of, like, the evolution of computers as they move forward. And then I guess the second part to that question is, how do you think that players like Petrosian and Karpov would fare now in the computer age, especially, at their peaks, considering their amazing prophylactic and defensive prowess?
Well, thank you so
Scott.
much. And I'll take the first part because,
Okay.
well, I did graduate with a master's in video game design, and part of that was programming. So I do have a good concept of how chess engines work, and I have programmed a very basic chess engine. I know how they work. I know how the Stockfish works and all these, and how they've influenced chess. And I actually have to disagree with you. Chess engines haven't really done much for our aggressive chess. It's not like they're very attacking. They're just very good at finding killing blows. But chess has really improved and excelled at defensive chess.
That's my
Thanks-
agreement with you right away.
Thanks to computers.
Right.
They find
Resources.
resources in positions that were previously considered unplayable. They
Right.
say, mathematically, this works. You cannot prove me wrong. It's what it is.
Exactly.
And we see this in very sharp variations as well as in very static variations. Consistently, resources of defense. You can take a look at, for example, the theory that has developed in the poison pawn variation of the Najdorf.
Bingo.
And that is a line in which all of the key attacking ideas have been known for years.
Right.
But I want to say decades.
Yes.
But the defensive resources for black really exploded once we got computers online. And many variations that are purely defensive
Right.
came alongside computers.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that one of the most painful things that I had to realize at a certain moment in my career, fortunately after I had retired, there were some variations of the Sveshnikov that to my classical positional feel, they looked like awful positions, and the computers were going 0, 0, 0.
Yes.
And then I was trying to beat the computers in these positions where they were saying it's even, and when I'm saying, no, give me white, and they proved their point better than I could. So I think it's actually defensive ideas as far as the Petrosians and Karpovs, if they were at their peak, and how would they would do today against the world's best players. Well, guess what? They're really, really good.
Yeah.
At their peak, I don't think it would have really been mattered too much. Of course, it's going to have an impact in the sense that theory has advanced so far. A lot of players today could really hold with white better
Right.
than before.
Yeah, I think the advancement of theory,
Especially.
it's
It's
changed
just
the game.
amazing. It's changed the game.
Absolutely.
Like
And
we
yeah,
see
for
with the
example-
Berlin.
Well, you were talking about the Sveshnikov. I grew up on the Sveshnikov. For me, playing the Sveshnikov Sicilian was normal. It was like,
What's the problem?
what's the problem? But you talk to people of an older generation, and their understanding of chess was that the Sveshnikov was unplayable.
Exactly.
It's changed chess, and I think that Petrosian and Karpov would still be doing amazing. I mean, they're geniuses.
Yeah.
I don't think that the computer would influence them that much.
Actually, I think they would benefit, as you
They would
said.
benefit,
As
yeah.
you said, defense wins. Nowadays, you have to be able to hunker down and last in those games, and those guys wouldn't lose. I mean, you talk about games like the one we're studying now. You're not beating Karpov and Petrosian in some solid position with a slight edge. Those guys could sit there and be like, "This is what I do for a living. I don't lose games." They would be what you would call of the Giri style, leaning in that direction. These guys are supremely talented. All they would need are seconds to start feeding them some lines and saying, this is a slight advantage for you. And they would be on the Carlsen side of things, I think, that they would just use that supreme technique and grind you down, especially at their peak. We're talking about the peak of their performances. Their technique was just superb, worth studying all those games even today.
Yeah, I almost have a question for maybe you and Yasser, since you guys grew up without, all the computer preparation. Was that almost beneficial for players learning to defend? Meaning, like, not everyone is booked up, and you would just get caught. Everyone just, there were so many possibilities, so many new variations that hadn't been explored that you would inevitably get caught a lot more in preparation or some tough position, and you just have to defend. I mean, you get a lot of practice defending bad positions at a time when it was a luxury.
Well,
I think that is something, that's changed a little bit, that now, you don't necessarily get as much practice, some of the younger generation, because we have also the benefit of the databases and everything. We maybe get a lot more, decent positions out of the opening, and we don't have to suffer as much.
I was betwixt between. In the early part of my career, the computers hadn't emerged yet, but then in the later part, you absolutely had to get all the databases, and I was able to use those. The thing that I was most affected by is my attacking style was all about, one of my great themes for myself was sacking a pawn for the initiative. Give up a pawn, no big deal, I don't care. I'd sack a pawn at any moment in a game to get the initiative, and I'd be looking for those opportunities. Unfortunately, those pawn sacks, the engines were like, thanks for the pawn, neutralize, you're probably losing now. And I think we have breaking news coming out of Moscow.
Breaking news coming out of Moscow. An important result for the tournament, certainly, as Anand was one of the people searching for that victory, trying to put pressure on the winners. He was unable to beat Anish Giri, and actually, I think he was suffering for quite a bit.
Towards the end, yes.
Towards the end. Vichy Anand against Anish Giri has ended in a draw. The 13th consecutive draw for Anish Giri in this tournament.
I think he's setting some kind of record
what's the
with
record?
that.
Can we check on?
That is just huge.
I mean, you can't even say records. There are candidate tournaments that have not been this long.
Yeah.
He has a streak longer than most candidate tournaments are long.
Well, and it was unfortunate. This is a kind of a result that really is bad for both players.
Yes, absolutely.
Bad
for both players. Giri needed that win
to give himself a chance?
Yeah, give himself a chance. He needed to win 2 in a row to have some outside chance of something happening that he could qualify to beat Magnus Carlsen in November. That's not going to happen. He drew today. Vichy Anand, he really wanted to win. This was his last white of the event. Right. He wanted to push. He wanted to get into contention and tie for first. His tiebreakers, we know, are bad. Right. But if he wins today, maybe he can try to push tomorrow with put some pressure.
Exactly. And so a must-win game for both players ended in a draw.
Yeah, very disappointing, I think, for both of the players involved in this game. But we have a phone call also joining us. Let's see who it is. Hello?
Alejandro, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Who's joining me?
This is John Cordisco from upstate New York.
Upstate New York, which I've learned is very different from New York.
Oh, yeah. But my question is this. Not to stir up some controversy, but according to the tiebreak rules that were set by FIDE, if Fabiano Caruana and Karyakin tie, and Karyakin wins on tie breaks, I think it's going to cause a big storm in the United States, that it was unfair. And very much how, like, Kramnik got put out in London in the candidates. And I'm wondering if, after this, if there's going to be a lot of pressure put on FIDE to make some real tiebreak rules.
Well, thank you for your question. I'm not entirely sure because I want to say yes. I mean, as a chess player, as a chess fan, as a chess everything, I want to say yes. FIDE is going to fix their stuff because this clearly doesn't work. I mean, there's no. I mean, I'm of the opinion this is ridiculous. You cannot have a tiebreak that's based on math or based on random chance or like one result. I mean, you got to play it out.
I think every grandmaster in the world is going to agree with you and all of us on this point. You tie for first, you play a playoff.
Yeah, but
that's it.
The problem is that, as the viewer pointed out, this already happened.
Right.
This happened.
And it was hugely controversial. Yes. For some strange reason, FIDE didn't change their system immediately to a playoff because somehow Magnus was the golden boy. And Magnus made the challenger's position as a result of the tiebreak. If Magnus had lost the tiebreak to Vladimir, perhaps FIDE would have changed.
That's an interesting point, Yasser. I never thought about it that way.
I mean, again, he was just the golden boy at the time. Everybody wanted to see Magnus play against Vichy, which is what they got.
Right.
And then FIDE didn't change rules, but this would be terrible.
Yes, I think so. In fact, I think that is a very important point you just made. Fantastic point. Usually when something feels broke, you fix it. And it feels like if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. And in the case where a Magnus played, you said, well, we had the rules and Magnus ended up playing. So it can't be so bad. But if you get something where people are saying, well, we really want to see something else happen here and the crowd is not feeling great about those results, then they could change it. I would disagree just slightly on the tie breaks, even though I'm of the school, absolutely, that the players should have the playoff, like no question about it. But I would say that if you wanted to do one tie break and that was head-to-head in the tournament, you said, well, I beat you in the tournament, right? We have a tie score, but one-on-one against you, I did beat you. I was 1.5-1/2 or 2-0. I took the better of you in the tournament. That is the only tie break I could accept. After that tie break, that head-to-head, it's got to be a playoff.
To answer that question, like I probably agree with the head-to-head. I've had that myself, and I think that's something people can accept. But otherwise, I mean, the phone caller's question, FIDE, in the chess world, things don't often get fixed on the first try. We're not quite as fast or as progressive as a few other competitions or sports. So we can only speculate, to be perfectly honest, if we base it on history. It could last a long time. I mean, since I've been playing chess, we've had the same president, a lot of the same rules. That's like 15, 20 years. So I think it's only really speculation right now.
But you got to say the digital age has changed things, right? Before, 4 years ago it was one thing. Now 4 years later, you're in the age of Twitter and the age of Facebook, all the social media that could create a real storm, a real uproar. And I think that they could be receptive to some change, especially since it's not that big a deal. They're prepared for it. If it was a tie after those three tie breaks, they're still ready to go and do the playoffs anyway. So I think it doesn't really benefit FIDE to have this in place. There is no logical benefit to saying, let's use a tiebreak formula as opposed to a playoff formula, when actually, as far as the fans are concerned, the drama, the sponsors, more attention to the sport, it benefits them much more so. That's why it's befuddling to me, guys. Why would they not do something that clearly benefits them? Have the tiebreak, have the playoff, because it's great for them.
No, I agree on all those points. So I still think the players from the tournament have to step up and say something about that. That's still an important factor, because you still have a lot of traditional chess players. But if the players say it, I know the fans want it. It's definitely more spectator-friendly. Things will get done. But I'm hoping a few prominent players with a lot of experience go forward and say, look, this can't continue.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
2 quick points. One thing that, going back to the caller's question and how chess has changed, for me, I grew up with the Germans, and everybody hates the Germans, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you something. Thanks to the Germans, I learned so much more about chess than I've ever learned. Learned all about rook and pawn endings, rook and bishop versus rook as a thematic ending that you have to hold it, and so forth and so on. And that was a really, really big change. Second point, I do want to go to a critical moment, what I thought was a critical moment in the game of Vachier-Lagrave. Vachier seized the defensive very early. He was on his back foot, and he was trying to recover, as Eric mentioned, from his early mistake. They got to this key position, and to me, this was a critical moment where if Vachier had any chances of holding, it was here. He played this move. I simply didn't understand H3, and after B5, he was ground down, certainly. I thought he had to play rook E4, and I throw that out there on the table as a drawing opportunity. My idea is very straightforward. If you trade and take my pawn on E5, then I've got this check downstairs, and I've got great holding chances. I feel I have great holding chances in this ending as white, because it's 3 versus 2 on the king side, and maybe I'll trade some pawn. But by failing to get off those 2 rooks, he gave Hikaru some really great winning chances, and it was actually because of the 4 rooks in the end that Hikaru won. So I think that if Vachier had a key moment where you said, okay, this is it, guy, this is your last shot, a chance of holding, it was right here at this moment, and I think rook E4 might have helped. But Maurice, you're going to take us through what he did wrong early.
Well, let's get to the game itself, because a lot of fans may not have actually gone over the game. I would like to hear some points about it. Up to this point, E4, bishop D4, Knight takes, knight takes. We see black has cleared the center. He has no issues as far as weak pawns. White does have the two bishops, but white is behind in development at the moment.
Yeah, you want two bishops, it's a long-term edge. But in this specific case, black can give up the bishop pair because black is going to get it back in development. You know, there's a bunch of threats coming in here in this position, like rook
on
e8 check,
e8.
bishop f5. So it's a concrete that black can give up the bishop pair and be very okay.
And that's the challenge. This bishop on f5 coming in quickly. This rook on e8. You want to put a bishop on e2. You get opposite color bishops immediately. The way the game went, he tried to challenge his knight on e3, only to face knight f5, rook takes, and queen takes, and now rook takes. And now the bishop is under threat. If it moves, of course, a check could happen on the file. Instead, he did play bishop e2, allowing this trade. And of course, now this e-pawn is weak. It's not fatal by any means, but there's something now for white to say, hey, I got something in your position that's a problem. This is after only 16 moves with the black pieces.
After 16 moves, one permanent weakness. I mean, that isolated e-pawn, for those who don't know, you see that isolated e-pawn, you see like any piece on the e-square, like a knight on e5 is one of those beneficiaries of this isolated e-pawn. But no, it's pretty bad. One more weakness after that, and it's getting close to fatal.
Slightly problematic, of course, is the fact that the b-pawn is on b4 as well instead of on b2.
Right.
His position is definitely a little porous as these pawns have advanced, but still not enough, I think, here. Here, e4 was played to get the pawn off the square, bishop e6. Here, the engines wanted to sometimes play knight d5 in this position. Instead, castles was played, and now knight e3, rook fc1. And you would think that this is the position a world-class player like Vachier-Lagrave would hold. I mean, he's worse, but he's not that much worse. And not to go down as quickly as he did, or to allow the things that happened to him to happen.
I mean, he knows this position is not that much worse. It's just suffering, but it's not that much worse. You're not down any material, and, you know, for the most part, you know, you have even pawns on the queen side. There's no sort of massive imbalance here. But you have to suffer. That is the bottom line, and that's the quality that's needed. That's the quality that's needed to play this type of position.
Suffering is part of world-class chess. We were talking about defense. Defense wins championships, and that happens in chess too. You've got to hold those worst positions. And Yasser brings up this point. So now they were able to get to this position. Black, of course, thrilled by seeing this position on the board. And after knight e4, rook b2, rook to e1, knight c4, knight g5, h6, and this critical position, black's pieces. This is where the suffering seemed like it was bad. It was whatever it was before. But now you start to see black's pieces grow. A rook on b2, a knight on c4. If we jump back, we see that that wasn't the case yet. Now you're down. It's about this time where you need to say, let's not let this get any worse than it is at the moment. The Indians like to move bishop to g4 here. Instead, rook a c1, rook d4, and now this moment h3 was played, and you're absolutely right, Yas. Indians don't like this move at all. h3 just simply accelerates the advantage. The move bishop to b7 has been suggested maybe to get backdoor in this position, get into the position is one idea here. But h3 just seemed awfully slow. You're not going to get mated on the back ranking anyway.
I'm curious, a couple moves ago, you said bishop g4 was a suggestion. Is that, I mean, bishop b7 to me is a pretty unnatural move to maybe look for. But in this position, a move like, I don't know, bishop g4, that makes a lot more sense to me. And like, you know, Topalov went for this position thinking, you know, I have an isolated e-pawn. If I give black, I get rid of the bishop. They also have that pawn on e6. It should be favorable, but he did not follow up correctly. So I'm kind of curious. He must have missed something probably in this direct position, because afterwards, black kind of takes over the position.
And the thing is, a bishop and a knight in an imbalanced pawn structure, as we have here, actually, I was saying imbalanced. Previously, it was imbalanced, but now the position is actually symmetrical. But with erratic pawns, usually the bishop is really a great piece, except when the knight can find a home. And we know knights need stable squares. The knight was able to find a home here on c4, and it's eyeballing the e-pawn, it's eyeballing the a-pawn, it's going to get protected by b5. So clearly black is thinking, but if I could just stabilize this without any counterplay for the other side, I'm going to improve this position and maybe get some chances. Not winning the game, obviously. Nobody thinks like that when they're just playing. But get some chances, see if I can make the most out of it. And the way Topalov played, just ultra passive after these couple of moves. He played rook to c3, and now it's like, what are you doing? Every move the guy makes is getting better and better and better for him. Even if, when we get to this position, where he's still apparently okay, but here is where it starts to go downhill after this trade, and now bishop to e4, and he's still trying to fight for his life here. But right now, it's clear when the rook left and came on this side that black was suddenly in command in this position.
Yeah, it's one of those cases, even though it's an open position, you know, somebody asked me what my favorite chess piece is. It's that knight in this case. That knight has a stable square. That bishop is not doing a good job of restricting black's activity. And you made a good point earlier about Nakamura getting more confident. It surely showed in this game. He's keeping the tension, and he's hunting white down despite, you know, having, you know, not the best tournament. You saw Topalov playing pretty bad in the beginning of the game, and he's been hunting ever since then. So I think we see Nakamura getting a bit more comfortable throughout, from the beginning of this game to the end. You can kind of see, I mean, this is a guy who, instead of being the hunted, is now hunting. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can just go for some more moves. He offered a trade of rooks, and then bam, there went the e-pawn. Black's position still wonderful. You're going to have to defend on the square. Excuse me, after knight takes e5, rook a8 check, king to f7. Now the king is joining the act. Look at the differences in between the two kings. The rooks themselves, the dominant central piece. Bishop h7, when you got to play moves like this, it's like, come on, this is so artificial. King to f6, rook f8 check, and now doubling back, hitting this rook. He thought he had something attacking this pawn, except after knight g6, getting the pawn, knight f4, and suddenly g-pawn's hanging, the bishop on e6 is hanging. It's all she wrote. You can't even save this piece because of rook takes, and suddenly, bam, there goes your rook, and there's no move. After he played this move, knight to f4, Topalov had to resign. This has got to be one of, just as we said, for Topalov, one of the worst performances of his life, coming off the back end of another candidate's where he was also in last place. He played terribly in that one as well.
This has to be discouraging for Veselin. He plays good throughout the year. He's been, you know, getting his rating to high levels, over 2000 multiple times. But then at the candidates tournament, both times playing atrociously at many points. I mean, this game, you know, I can take a loss. But when I really get upset is when I didn't make my opponent work for that loss. And he did not make Nakamura work at all here.
Just absolutely suffering is Vasilin Topalov. Now out of the top 10 in the world in the live rankings. He still has to play another round. And sure, he wants to go home. Like, please, did I really sign a contract that I had to play all these games? He is taking it on the chin this tournament. Nakamura, of course, happy to get a victory. Hey, look, man.
Anyway.
I'll take a win. These guys don't feel sorry for you. There's no such thing as sorry until after it's over. They're like, no, we're taking you down. This is how it works. Sorry, we're playing chess. It may be me tomorrow or the next tournament. So it's what it is. This game in the books, Nakamura at 50%, Topalov remaining in last place.
Out of the top 10, the poor guy's out of the top 15 now.
Wow.
It's terrible. And in a weird situation, everybody in this tournament now has 50% or more.
With the exception of Topalov.
With the exception of Vasilin Topalov.
One of the things that really, it just bears mention, Hikaru, having a horrible tournament, suddenly wins back-to-back games.
Well, very important back-to-back games.
Sure. And why does he do it? Because I think he realized at a certain moment the pressure was all off.
Yeah.
He is not going to become the challenger. And then he just played nice, easy games, and it's sort of like the pressure's off, and we see the Hikaru that we expected from round one. And imagine he wasn't suffering whatever psychological problems he has been, where he might be. But back-to-back victories and
very nice comeback.
Ones.
Very nice comeback for Hikaru Nakamura.
Definitely.
Putting himself in, like, well, it's not a tournament he's going to want to remember, but it's not a tournament he's going to be saying, okay, I did
Let's
horrible.
forget about
Let's
it.
forget about it. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's still okay. 50% in this tournament is very strong.
Yeah, it's a very, very strong event. Then the other crucial game that we have was a draw. And again, we talked about a result. The one result that neither player wanted was a draw in this game. A victory by either side was vital to their campaigns. Well, this is one of the most confusing games of the tournament for me. I didn't understand what was going on at various stages of the event. Of this game. I don't know about you. I was just really mystified.
You know, Yasser, I was brought up with the computer generation. That doesn't mean I can understand.
I was hoping you had the great answers for me.
No. That was very, very weird game. Let's take a look at from the very beginning. An Italian opening, making another appearance here in the candidates tournament. Seems like Vichy is really relying on this, avoiding the Berlin, avoiding the Spanish.
I think that's what it's all about, avoiding the Berlin. and he's come to this move bishop c4 because basically he's trying to get a game, trying to get play. And Anish, one of the most well-prepared players in the world, has no problems out of the opening. This is all standard, and I think actually we saw castles earlier in the tournament, and it was Anish. I don't know if this is a novelty. It looks like a very reasonable idea.
Very typical idea to maneuver the knight. And where is this knight going?
To g6.
To g6 and f4.
Correct.
All right.
And also the knight on e7 gives the flex. The knight on c6 just doesn't have a good home there. There are no squares that it can go to. So the knight is looking for greener pastures. At the same time, with this move c7, c6, Anish is saying, hey, listen, you know, I'm not content just to play a passive but solid position. I'm going to be seeking counterplay down the road with the d6, d5 break. Interesting for me that Vichy didn't capture on f6. You mentioned that you yourself are a Sveshnikov player,
yes.
so these double pawns never bothered you.
They don't scare me. I'll put it that way. The idea, and we can put it on the board after bishop takes f6, g takes f6. It's not only that you open up the rook and allow f5 to come into the position at some point. For me, what makes me so happy about this position is that bishop on a7, because I know that it will no longer have any rival. It cannot get traded off. It's going to be a nuisance for the rest of the game.
It's like a missile in some kind of a silo that's constantly harassing you. Yeah, I don't feel that. And in fact, I believe that such a trade would have been premature. It's just that, you know, the classical positional players and blah, blah, blah. No, in truth, the dynamic factors far outweigh the static factors here, and I'd much prefer black. That was why Vichy did not capture on f6, and instead he played this. Now comes this move, knight h4. Of course it was directed against the move knight g6.
Which is an
knight h4?
It's an interesting point, because here you could actually take on f6 much, much better than you could have a couple of moves ago. And now that black has castled, you think the weakened position is somewhat relevant. But at the end of the day, it's still that bishop on a7 that's so important.
Very good.
Well, guys, we have
Maurice,
to jump in on this one. This is exactly where this position diverges from the Sveshnikov. In the Sveshnikov, there is no d-pawn for white, right? It's Sicilian, open Sicilian. The d-pawn is already off the board, literally from move 4. That move, black's move 3, and it's just gone. In this position, though, however, you can shift and get into a position where this d-pawn exists, and it blunts the possibility of this bishop. So here, bishop takes, g takes, and now the move d4 is playable. You could not do this against a Sveshnikov formation at all. Of course, black has the extra c-pawn as well, so that does change the dynamic factors. Whether or not this is good is absolutely unclear. Is this bishop ever going to see life? Well, I got a c-pawn here. I'm not going to show it any life. How do you handle this position? Now, most people who played the Sveshnikov, Anand, of course, has done so himself and has played this kind of crazy pawn formation as well, so he knows how to handle this stuff, and he might be judging this as just fine for black. If you look at a couple of variations, the engine gives, for example, the move d5, which seems very aggressive in this moment after ed5, cd5, bishop b4, e4, as the position has come under pressure, but now knight h4. And black has these pawns, but white is able to put a knight on e3, play queen to h5, play g3. It's looking awfully lot like a Sveshnikov, except again for these two pawns in the middle of the board.
Well, I have a question I want to pose to you. If you're Anand right now in your camp, he's trying to play catch-up. He's a half point behind. What do you tell him before this game? Because, you know, when he's calculating these middle game variations and assessing the risk, he has to think about the tournament situation. What do you think about it? Because right now, Anand has been coasting. He's been getting good positions as white. He's been playing
coasting?
them. Well, I mean,
seven decisive games.
When I mean coasting, like he's been trying to play his preparation every single game. In his losses, he lost because he thought he was in preparation, and he actually ends up being out-prepared or losing through the complications. But either way, he has his comfort zone, and the results have not. I mean, I don't think he intended to have 7 decisive games. For the most part, Anand of the past few years has been a very calm player, a very principled, practical player, maximizing his abilities. But in this situation, this is you know, the last 2 rounds, he's half point behind. An imbalanced position like this,
seems to me should have suited him
It's not in
perfectly.
preparation. I don't think he thinks about this. Is a
But
stretch.
I think this is where he should have gone for sure. I think that he needed something sharp, something tricky, something different, and I don't think that this position is a position that White needs to be afraid, specifically because of that bishop not having the same power. Now, of course, the bishop could shift to the new diagonal, but G3 is coming anyway. This is sharp. There's no way in the world this is just easily better for White, even though the engines believe that this is just better for White, but probably because of the structure here and the less dynamism, White's queen side is not as compromised. But I think that this is the kind of position he should have played for.
Yeah, and it also comes up to me a thought that Giri has had good positions almost every game this tournament. It might have crossed his mind. He didn't take on F6 and go into this position because is this Giri's preparation? I mean, the guy's been so rock solid. Maybe he has this in his preparation. Like maybe he's established that type of aura, around him. Because I think Anand, I mean, this position, I would go for. I think this is just simply better as White. This is not a case of Giri's preparation. This would be some sort of uncleared position that might favor both players based on what they're looking for. But
it's worth playing.
But when
it's
you're playing,
absolutely worth
when you're
playing
playing a guy who's renowned for having really good preparation, that definitely can get in your head sometimes. Right?
But if you're going to do that, sorry, you're one of the top players in the world. If you're going to do that, you might as well stop playing chess. I mean, come on. Oh, your preparation is so good, I'm going to avoid everything. Yeah. You're not going to have any results that way. You have to say, I'm trying to beat Magnus Carlsen. I'm trying to get to the title. I'm trying to get to the top of the mountain. Letting this guy get his preparation off in any position he wants, you're not a challenger. I don't think he was thinking that way. I think he probably genuinely assessed this position as unclear and maybe not where he wanted to go. The choice he actually made, however, with knight h4, allowing d5. Now, once you allow d5, we know, just classical, you go back 150 years, Black gets in d5. Usually Black's going to be okay. D5,
yes,
ed5, knight, ed5. And from here, it's all Black.
Well,
I mean, it's one move later. It's
like
all Black. This is the critical moment in the game. And Black is like, now check my bishop out on a7. You're not going to block it anytime soon with real results. And guys, I think that was the moment in the game, that knight h4, instead of going for it with bishop takes f6.
Oh, no question, knight h4 was mystifying. If you go just a few more moves from that position where you guys were just stopped, we got to this position, knight f4 takes, d4. I already like Black's position at this point. I prefer Black's. It's a pair of bishops. It's better development. There's a potential g5, g4 annoyance that you should be worried about. Then came this move c6, c5, which is okay. Nothing's wrong with that move per se. But I'm sitting there thinking to myself, look, I'm already feeling better. Why on earth didn't he, a mystifying question for me is why he didn't play either knight e4 or knight d5. And the idea is, hey, you just post up in the center. I want to try to use this majority. Of course, I understand my f-pawn is pinned, but I do want, on a very good day, to create a pawn storm. And again, it's like Anish Giri's been drawing all of his games.
Right.
He's got to start to take some risks. He's got to be willing to mix it up at times. And this is a position where I'm not saying that a g5 pawn avalanche would have worked and there's not, counter sacrifices or things like that. But he's got to really start putting pressure on his opponent. And I thought that knight e4, to me, is the most obvious move in the position. Maybe others would have felt knight d5 if you're a Marshall Gambit player.
No, I understand where you're going from, but I actually liked Anish's decision in this position because I'm also the kind of player that loves bishops, and for me the bishop on a7 is suffering. I want to open it up. He has no rival. Let's get him into the game as soon as possible. I mean, I think c5 would have been, I think, the first move I look at in this position.
Interesting, because just as you're saying, you want to improve the position of the value of your bishop a7. You want to play c5 and get it in the game.
Absolutely.
I'll turn that around and say, look at White. From White's point of view, his knight on c2 is really poor. Heck, put it on h2 and it'd be even much more happier. Put it on d2, put it on b3. c2 is a terrible circuit. When you play the move c5, I agree. I completely agree. You're trying to break out of the prison and help your bishop on a7, but at the same time, you're giving my knight on c2 a positive role. Whereas I'm thinking if you go knight e4 and then, trying to, double rooks, knight e4, rook e7, rook e8. Very, very easy play. Let's see how it went after c5. again, we're getting into a position where I really like Black's position. Bishop, and
here
I think
things went crazy.
This is where...
Because Bishop F3 was already a very concrete move.
Precisely.
Yeah, you don't play Bishop F3 in a void.
Bishop F2.
No, Bishop F3.
Bishop F3 to force his position so you can play
force
Bishop
his
F2.
position to take. And let's take a look because he just traded a bishop for a knight.
So to try to, sorry to interrupt, sorry, to try to get into Anisha's head for a moment, I bet you he thought he was much, much better at this moment. And when he played Bishop F2, he was probably thinking he could calculate a concrete variation, a concrete win, or a variation that give him an edge.
At the very least, he thought it was extremely dangerous for white, and it might have been, but...
Okay, let's see.
Let's take a look. Bishop takes F2. This is a very thematic sacrifice.
And then, ooh.
Yeah. And let's just explain to the viewers why he didn't interpose with the knight. It's on Queen B6 check.
Excuse me? Okay, sorry, let me take that move back. Hold on. Oh, jeez, Okay. Okay. If you interpose with the knight, the problem is that this rook on C8 sits against your queen, and any move like knight D4 would have allowed the knight to be captured, and recapturing on D4 would mean the loss of the queen on C2.
Right.
Yeah? Okay. So that was why we saw, and now it's a threat of checkmate in 1. Checkmate. You don't have time to take the rook because knight G3 is checkmate. Vichy had to play the move G4 to give his king the luft, or the square. G2 is available. Now we take en passant, so that's 2 pawns for the sacrifice piece, and we're threatening queen F2 mate.
That is checkmate on the board, yeah.
So bishop D3 to protect F2.
Let's stop right there, guys, because that's where the critical moment occurs now in the analysis. Right here after this maneuver. By the way, let's give Giri credit. He did not have to sacrifice on F2.
Absolutely.
No. He went for it. This is the moment where Giri went for it. It's crazy. We've seen him play trying to win. It's not that he's playing incorrect moves. It's not even that he's playing boring moves. Just because the result is a draw doesn't mean that he's not trying. It's just that it seems somehow that whatever he tries is ending up within the field of a draw, or when he's better, he doesn't finish the guy off. We've seen that he could have won two games this tournament where he was clearly winning, not even maybe like close. He was killing Fabi. That was a joke. And Nakamura also was dead to all rights, but he wasn't able to finish those games off. So he is absolutely trying, but he's just not closing out the games.
Yeah, we both enjoyed a comment we read online. It was something along the lines of, Giri's games are not boring, only his results are. Because if you were to analyze his games, you can learn a lot from them, and he's had such very types of positions this tournament that it's not the position, it's really the end result that he's getting criticized for.
And it's, he's young. He's what, 21?
21 only.
He's
youngest.
Young. When he figures that out, best believe this kid's going to be extremely dangerous. When he figures out how to start winning those 1 games, putting a little bit more spice in his game, you want to know how hard it is to beat him? Try 13 attempts so far by some of the best players on the planet, and they can't touch him.
Not even close.
Not even close. And he's the one who's hunting them down. So when he puts it all together, this is a future contender right here. No question about it. 2 years from now, 4 years from now, he still has room to improve. He's only been at the top for a little while right now. When he's like, look, they can't beat me. I get it. Now it's time for me to beat them. He will figure it out, get that confidence, and surge, I think, 2 years, 4 years, this one is somebody to watch. This player is somebody to watch as a future challenger to Magnus. Even right now, we know that to be the case. He's got a plus score on Magnus. But in this particular game, in this position, right here, after it takes G3, Anand was not forced to play the move bishop to D3. Looks forced, but the engines actually, talk about the art of defense, give the move rook to D4 right now as the best try, and that white is the one who shuts down the attack with this move. Rook D4, very interesting tactical idea. Of course, if rook takes, knight takes, you think that maybe he's able to play the move queen takes because of the pin, but guess what? This move, bishop takes, suddenly on H5, the uncovery of the attack, suddenly also the uncovery defense along the second rank, and white is the one who's up a piece here and is clearly in the driver's seat. Yes, his king's slightly exposed, but he's going to fix that really fast. King on G2, bishop on F3, everything's going to be fine, and it's going to be black looking to equalize this position. So rook D4, guys, this looks like the moment Anand could have played for a win. Rook D4, and it looks like he has an edge here as opposed to the way he played, which gave Giri a chance to get back in the game.
Yeah, rook d4 is a very reasonable move. It's not outside of the realm of like, you know, human calculation there. It doesn't go that deep. You know, bishop d3 is very easy to calculate, which is one benefit of what Anand did. But if you're thinking you're doing well as white here, and I'm not used to this sacrifice that much in the Spanish structures. It is not the most common. Like, my impression is white should, you know, be a little bit better. I mean, if we look at the material, that's 2 pawns for a piece. Full compensation, I'm not buying that. And Anand has to look for a way in this position to try to maximize that. And rook d4 really does look like a serious improvement over the game. I mean, if we look at, for example, I think Anand, when he's looking, he might have been afraid of a move like g2.
Yes, absolutely. G2 looks a little scary.
Those are complications.
His knight could end up on f4. For example, if you take this pawn right now, also this tricky move, queen to g6, check. But even here, by the way, king goes back in the corner, and this is not death for him. There's a lot of calculation here. The engines are giving triple zeros, so that wasn't necessarily a fearful line. By the way, after g2, he could also just play king g1, and that still settles everything down, and it's white for choice in this position. Black can't break through this pin, and the tempo of the knight sitting on this square, you can't bring the knight into the game because your rook is hanging at the moment, so you have to solve this problem first, and it doesn't go anywhere for black. There is a dangerous looking line, for example, this move doubling on this line, but it should be that queen d2, I believe, will be okay. The engines give a5 first and then queen d2. Maybe it was stuff like this he was a little bit afraid of, like suddenly the black pieces are coming nearer and nearer to his king, but the engines give bishop to c4, and I would say if you start seeing something like this, you might feel like, I don't know, let me just do the easy thing and get out of here, as opposed to let it get more complicated instead of calculating further. I can see a human decision to potentially avoid this position.
Yeah, bishop d3 makes so much sense. When you're up, he's up a piece for 2 pawns. You want to trade off material. Bishop d3 attacks the rook, and the rook on e1 and e4 are threatening to be exchanged. So what he did is definitely completely understandable, but it was also a position that asked for almost, you know, perfect precision in order to push that.
So potentially another opportunity lost for Anand right at that moment in the game.
Great. I want to take a Grandmaster poll. Okay? So here we are on this position that I have on my board, and it's move 37.
Well, we might want to first get to that position because,
okay,
I mean, it seems kind of unnatural. You're up a piece, and suddenly you're not.
Right.
Let's take a look at how that happened.
Okay, so as Maurice and Eric were explaining, from bishop d3, we saw a pretty forcing sequence. Okay, there's all kinds of tactics. I agree.
G2 was a nice move, and let's explain this move real quick.
Sure.
So you might think in this position before the move G2 that black has the move queen takes d4, but let's explain why that doesn't work.
Okay, queen takes d4. And let me explain why that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work?
Rook e8.
Yes. I had seen that in an earlier moment. Rook e8, very sweet little check.
Yes.
Trying to draw the rook off the c file so that I can take the queen. I'll pick up the rook on c8 after king g7.
Exactly, so that doesn't work. G2 is very nice because if, for example, you ignore my threat and you go king g1,
sure,
suddenly the move queen takes d4 is check.
Now it's check. Now I don't have time to play rook e8.
Rook e8.
So I'm obliged to capture the pawn on g2.
Yes.
Knight d3, discover check, pick up the rook on e1. And we're going to get to the position I wanted to in a moment. Queen e4. Now, this is like one of the toughest imbalances in the chess world to try to understand. You have 2 minor pieces versus a rook and a pawn.
Yeah, but as opposed to most positions, your king on e1 is so horribly exposed.
Okay, I don't know about horribly exposed. Agreed. King position definitely is a key factor in trying to make an assessment of would you prefer to have the rook and the pawn, or would you prefer to have the 2 pieces. I've always had a prejudice in favor of the 2 pieces.
Well, everybody does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Except for the positions when, you know, like the rooks are really active and things like this. Mm-hmm. Your judgment, just at this point, I'm going to ask Maurice and Eric in a second what they think, but do you prefer white or black?
Man, that's a tough one. In this position right now,
quick.
I think it's easier to play with black.
Eric, your view. Would you prefer white or black at this position after move 37? The last move was queen e4 by Vichy.
Good question, Maurice. I prefer black because of king position. I assessed position overall as fairly balanced, but I think there are more ways to go wrong as white than black. And so, I mean, in an otherwise balanced position, I just think it's easier to play with the rook and queen.
And Maurice.
Well, I just can't stand the white king. I don't know where to put it. I just don't know where to put it. I feel like black has absolutely no losing chances. That's the problem I have for white in this position. I don't know how I lose. You could even gang up on the f7 pawn somehow. In fact, that's the only pawn I think you're going to be able to go after, because the the B pawn shouldn't go down. You can't migrate all your pieces over. I'm not going to trade off anything with you. Forget trade of queens or anything like that. That will not happen. I'm going to keep everything on the board, especially the queens, and I think that white king is the problem. Still, I believe overall the position's balanced, but if just this one, you feel like, where does my knight particularly belong, and how my bishop get in the game without exposing my insides? Because I feel like inside the position is going to be the second rank, the third rank is going to be exposure on G3, the dark square diagonal. That's where I feel the position is going to really be affected. Why white can't just release his pieces and say, go kill him, release the hounds. No, your king is not as safe as this guy who's got 3 pawns in front of him.
I have to ask, Yasser and Alejandro, I don't know if it's a good thing that Maurice is agreeing with me.
No, it's not. You guys should always be in disagreement.
No,
this guy's not too bright, you know that. But sometimes, even a blind squirrel can find a nut. Sometimes. So don't worry about it. You'll be wrong on other occasions. Don't worry.
Okay.
I thought that this was a very, very tough judgment on all cases. King position, we're all in agreement. If white's king is in some kind of better shield, king on B1, king on H2, we'd be talking very strongly about a white advantage.
Yes.
I somehow felt that white had a smidgen. I know the engines felt it was even and balanced.
Right, in this position.
Yeah.
So you're the one in disagreement here.
Yes, I'm the one in disagreement.
Interesting.
not the Canadian. No,
Not the Canadian. Not the Canadian.
Well, it's very interesting because it points out how complex chess is. The fact that we have computers analyze this position, you have grandmasters analyze this position, but that doesn't mean that there is a consensus on who is better.
Not
I mean,
at
there's so
all.
many factors that you can say, and we will keep looking at the game in a
Absolutely.
little bit. We are going to take our first break.
I was about
Not yet.
get to
We are
it,
not
a
yet.
critical
Hassan.
moment, a mystifying moment.
We'll have plenty of time for that. We're going to take our first break of the day. We are going to, as usual, leave you with Beyond the Board and today's topic, where we like to play chess.
Ooh.
It's a good one. We'll see you back here in just a little bit.
A one-tank trip in a nearby city you won't want to skip. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton. There's museums full of art and super fun slides. Upside-down concretes, twisty, turny rides. Houses full of magic, some with butterflies. Gardens growing flowers, parks with giant eyes. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton.
So guys, one of the great things about being a chess player is we get to play chess in some fantastic places.
Travel.
We get to travel, we get to meet new people and all that. So, and people love to find out about our profession. So I'm throwing it out there. What are some of your favorite, all-time favorite places that you play chess?
Favorite places all time. It's different because I enjoy traveling a lot. So for me, sometimes it's the culture, sometimes it's the place. It's very hard for me to have a top. But I think playing hall-wise, it's the tournament I just came back from. The Reykjavik Open in Iceland, for me, is just fantastic.
You're talking about the Opera House.
You're playing, yeah, it's a concert hall.
Concert hall,
Beautiful.
fantastic. That was on my list.
Oh my god, it's one of the key architectural features of the city of Reykjavik, and you're playing in it. It's gorgeous view. You can see the ice and the snow just howling outside of the playing hall.
That's what I remember. You're like,
Nice and
what
warm
beautiful,
inside.
it's howling outside. You're trying to
Howling.
play chess and it's incredible. It's like ice storm. It depends on, of course, it's always in March, so it's always crazy weather there. And you feel like you're maybe a Viking trying to play chess inside with the howling going on outside. It's a
amazing.
really amazing spot.
But I think the prettiest city that I've been to, and I think you've been there, was Bled in Slovenia.
Oh yes, that was very, very nice. No, for me, Lugano was just amazing. They had these great tournaments in Lugano. Lugano is the Italian canton part of Switzerland. The food was unbelievable. The place itself was just gorgeous. Everywhere you looked, it was postcard. Biel. Biel in Switzerland. Those two places. But for chess fans and for everything was Buenos Aires for me. Oh my gosh, Buenos Aires. Great food. And it just seemed like everybody was into the tournament. Journalists everywhere, people asking you for your autograph. You know, the guy, as you're walking into the hotel, concierge guy goes, "How did you do?" You know, I mean,
when I played in Buenos Aires,
great fans.
Buenos Aires, we didn't have DGT boards back then. This was like 2003 or something.
Right, they had the board boys.
Yeah, but we were playing in such a way that it was difficult to relay. So they had a volunteer group of kids. I mean, huge group of kids.
Right.
That would run between a place that were actually showing the games. Our board would like write down what we played and run back out.
Right.
And it was a huge line of people that wanted to do this. Now that, I mean, was amazing.
Eric?
I really agree with Iceland and Buenos Aires, but those are both really chess countries. You feel that the people are so friendly to you, and that's a big factor, but I'm going to give a plug to Canada here. My favorite place to play is Victoria in North America so far. Victoria is an island off of Vancouver. Wonderful weather. The tournaments are usually right on the water. It's renowned for seafood. It's got a great, bar scene, pub scene.
Is that the Empress Hotel?
That's one of them. Empress Hotel and the
gorgeous.
grounds. Exactly. It is.
The grounds.
It is. You have the water view just like in Iceland, but it's like still a North American feel. So I think Victoria is one of my favorite places to play. I've won every tournament.
We can open it up. Hawaii.
Oh my God.
I remember the U.S. Open.
You and I were in Hawaii.
Oh my God.
Big island.
How hard is it to play chess
But it
in
was
Hawaii?
difficult. I mean, it was
ridiculous.
so beautiful that you were like, I mean, normally you just don't care where you are. You were hotel, chess, food, it doesn't matter if it's China, if it's Buenos Aires.
Right.
I mean, tournament is tournament. But I mean, I found myself in Hawaii and I was like, I'm on the beach.
Jakarta, great. All the organizers, wonderful, wonderful food. Everything's great. Then about 7 o'clock in the morning, it was the call to prayers. It's a Muslim country. And they had these loudspeakers, man. Allah Akbar. You're waking up with this singing in your ears. It was like, what? That was the only tournament where I made breakfast every day.
Yeah.
Because of the call. It was great.
Some wild stuff happens at these tournaments, but I always like the island places to play. I mean, maybe because I'm from Jamaica. Jamaica, for one, is a great place to play. Bermuda is also a fantastic location to play. Just, it's always nice when you know, especially when it's one game a day, right? Not
That's critical too, right?
You play one game a day, you just know you're going to have fun,
Right.
no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Some wonderful places like that.
And for me, it's quite a boost because a lot of people might be wondering, well, who cares what you're playing? But actually, I find it affects my play a lot. I find that if I'm not having fun, if I'm not enjoying myself outside of the chessboard, it's really hard to come in and concentrate on the board.
Right.
And I think a lot of top players also mentioned that they are willing to play more in environments they're comfortable in. And for example, even though Vachier-Lagrave is not known as a tourist hotspot, people feel comfortable playing
The camaraderie.
They like the way they set up the tournament. Everybody feels at home.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, one of the reasons that Vachier-Lagrave is one of the top tournaments in the world every year.
Exactly. I think the best tournaments in the world are where the organizers are having fun and they're happy to see you.
Yeah.
You have this feeling that you're special, right? As opposed to just coming to a tournament, you paid your entry fee and the guy says, round starts at 6.
Yeah, there's nothing more pleasant for me than playing like in a suburb or where nobody's there, nobody's coming to the games. There's not really any sort of reception or something. I just don't enjoy playing chess when there's like no crowds or no energy put in.
You know, you guys are funny because I hear you mention all this stuff, and I know a couple of you at least here, and I'm talking about the young guys, are party animals. And I know that there's, look at the grin. I know that a few tournaments you go to for the parties, and admit it, for the ladies as well. Come on now, let's get into some true confessions right now. People want to know some of the party scenes.
Well, playing in Greece, World Junior, fantastic event, good parties,
beautiful ladies, and really good chess. World Junior is often a tournament that future top players go through, so you get to see the cream of the crop. Otherwise, the Chess Olympiad is a lot of fun, Maurice.
Chess Olympics.
Olympiad.
Yeah, the Chess Olympics, the Bermuda Party.
The Bermuda Party.
But also,
the legendary Bermuda Party.
Well, the cool thing really is about the Olympiads is when...
Wait, you're talking the young guys, the party animals? This guy's taking the story.
The national dresses.
From way back.
The national dresses, when the people come with their national dress and you got like 100 countries representing. Oh, that's just fantastic.
No, it is
love
fantastic.
I love the Olympics.
The Olympiad, it has such a big amount of culture behind it because you meet so many people and you get so many people to meet you. It's just a hot pot of chess. You have people that are just trying to get their federation started to super powerhouses trying to make their mark on the world elite. And you see this clash of ideas and this need for so many people to have a voice in the Chess Olympiad. I think it's just an event like no other. If you have to go to one tournament in your life, make it an Olympiad.
I agree with that.
And it's the Olympic year this year, so it should be
in Baku.
In Baku,
in Baku this year, and it'll be in Batumi in a couple of years.
Okay.
But before
mark your calendars.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But before that, I want to mention a place that I personally enjoy playing a lot, and actually I've had the best result of my life in. And it's where we're sitting right now.
I was about to say
St. Louis.
St. Louis. I love this chess club. They always make you feel at home. And I'm not saying this just because we're here. I mean,
why would we do that?
I've heard this from everybody that's come here and played. The organization level is just very special. The dedication that everybody at the club, from the staff that greets you in the morning to Joy and Tony managing everything, I mean, it just feels very personal and very professional. And I think that's one of the reasons that St. Louis has become not only like the place to be, it's the place everybody wants to be. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I've never played here, but as a commentator, I feel like a king.
I love it.
And that alone, so imagine as a player.
Yeah. And I'll still never forget this one. It was the Singfield Cup. They were doing the book signing, and they had the line outside. That was special.
What more could you want?
I mean, it was around the block.
Yeah, it was
a great place indeed. A great place to play, and we'll be sure to enjoy it for years to come.
Be surprised. Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
We are back with you guys here in another edition of Today in Chess. We are covering the Candidates Tournament going on right now in Moscow. We have 2 results already today as Anish Giri with the black pieces drew against Vachier-Lagrave, and Vachier-Lagrave with the white pieces got blown off the board by American Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. 2 results still pending, probably the 2 more important ones for the results of the entire tournament.
Absolutely, but that game that Naka won, that was sad to say. I think the worst game at the tournament.
Yes, I think that was.
It was really
bad. It was really bad. I mean, Topalov is just not in form. I think he just wants to forget about this tournament.
Right.
He's dropping out of the top 15 players in the world.
Wow.
I mean, he started the tournament in the top 10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And top 5, like. Did he?
It was at least close to top 5.
Yeah.
As we have the results of round 13 so far. Fabiano Caruana and Peter Svidler, as well as Levon Aroni against Sergei Karyakin, they are still pending results. We will be looking at those games as soon as they're finished. Vachier-Lagrave lost to Hikaru Nakamura. Vachier-Lagrave is drawn against Anish Giri, a game that they both badly needed to win. As we see the standings going into round 13, this is after 12 rounds of chess in Moscow. Sergei Karyakin and Fabiano Caruana, they share the lead. It's Fabiano Caruana that sees himself behind slightly on tie breaks as he does not have as many decisive results as Karyakin. Vichy Anand has drawn his game. He joins temporarily Sergei Karyakin and Fabiano Caruana at the lead, but of course they still have the results pending. Peter Spiller, Anish Giri, and Levon Aronian all on 50%. Anish Giri with the legendary 13 draws. Now after today's game, he sits on 6.5. This is of course the results after round 12 that we have on the screen. Hikaru Nakamura did defeat Vachier-Lagrave, who has guaranteed himself $19,000 as he finishes last in the candidates tournament.
And an utterly forgettable tournament for Vesselin.
Definitely.
And Hikaru, now that the pressure's off, has gotten scored back-to-back victories.
Yes, a very nice bounce back for Hikaru Nakamura. Unfortunately for him, a little too late in the tournament.
Right.
He has no real chances to win the tournament. I think that it would require a miraculous series of results for him.
Of the pending games.
Of the pending games and tomorrow's games for that
as well.
To happen. Yeah, actually,
I think
he is mathematically eliminated because Karyakin does play Caruana.
Exactly.
They can't both lose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys, let's continue with the game between Vichy and Anish because it was so critical for both players, both needing a must-win. We left it at a position where difference of opinion 3-1 against me. I still prefer white. How did the game continue?
Well, from this moment on, Anish tried to improve his position. Certainly, the king got a little bit safer here, but this was a big decision. Knight to e5, right here after the move, queen b3, attacking this pawn, knight onto e5. The pawn is in trouble as it is. A move like queen to d2, of course, is possible, but b4 is coming. He did not have to give the pawn away in the way he did. Now knight to d4, queen to a2 is what the engines give, and now after this trade, rook here. Those moves, I have to tell you, the engine moves are confusing to me personally. If I had white, I would have been happy to see this sequence happen on the board, but the engines are giving those as the best moves in this position. Knight to e5, giving the b-pawn away, tossing the b-pawn away at this moment. I think you guys would have to agree that when you see the b-pawn drop, you've got to wonder if white's doing anything, because once the b-pawn drops, black has to be completely out of danger in this position.
Well, I think black is out of danger, but why Vichy went for this continuation was, I'm going to be worried about the queen and rook or this b4 push, or I'm going to give up the pawn and get all my pieces pointed towards black's king while the queen is offside. And while maybe white's not expecting a checkmate, at least as perpetual or a serious attack. I think instead of defending or having to calculate, I'm just going to use my majority, my piece majority, and put pressure on black's king while I still have the chance. And it is a small window right now. It's quite concrete. I think it's a concrete
Indeed.
solution. In
this moment, king g1, now rook to c8. Of course, the pawn is under fire. The engines now like to move knight to c6, but again, Anand moved his queen away and played against this pawn. And now the engines are thinking that black is the one that's better after this queen move. Queen to a2, guarding the pawn, no issues there. And suddenly, this attack that we were talking about has disappeared. And white is in trouble of losing this pawn, not having any kind of real play against the black king.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not surprising to say, but Vichy's play has just not been consistent there when there's been these moments where, I mean, he's just been avoiding maybe the correct decision to not suffer, but hold back, sit still, let the position play itself, or go for something really active. He went for something really active here, and it doesn't look like it was necessary. It does come with a certain element of risk. If this pressure on f7 doesn't work, that's two pawns and a rook against two pieces, and that
I think
should
even Yasser
favor...
would start liking black in that position. Yeah, as we know you're an old pawn grubber.
Yeah.
But that b pawn now off the board, no play against the f7 pawn. And c4, queen a7 check, king h2, and now b takes c4. And this is a still well within the drawing range for white, except when he played this move. And this is when the engines go gaga, that this move, bishop to d5, was dangerous. All right, take us through the nuances of this line. This is where Anand had a real chance to lose this game if Anish had played accurately.
Yeah, I mean, Anand, when he plays bishop d5, knight e5, this whole sequence, he's banking on black being reduced to passivity, playing rook f8, and focusing the queen and the rook on defense. But what actually happens here is the queen is protecting f7. There are no mates. Yes, you can lose f7, but that's it right now. So for example, like rook c5 is very strong here if we play rook c5, because after, let's say, bishop takes here, king to g7, and the coordination for white is off. There's no more checks. If you play a move like bishop back, to c4, queen c7 is over. And that's actually not that hard to see, because it's, in the sense that black can feel comfort in the sense that there are not checkmates here.
There are no checks. There's nothing serious to do except this check.
If you mess this up as black, it's a draw.
Yes.
It's a draw. It's not a loss. There shouldn't be a checkmate. You don't have a dark squared bishop. There's nothing you're missing.
No weird tricks.
So that should be comforting for black to look into this variation.
And it should be understood, just for the viewers who are checking it out and trying to understand, this pin on this knight's about to drop off the board. Remember, black has 2 pawns against 1. So this knight is about to drop off the board right now. You have to do something about it. If you try to trade queens, unfortunately, the knight and bishop can't both get on that square. So when queen takes queen happens, if you play knight takes, you no longer defend the bishop. If you play bishop takes, your knight's hanging. So that just doesn't solve the problem. So unfortunately for him, in this moment after queen c7, he has to figure something out. He can't play knight takes g6, aggressing the queen, because that doesn't change anything after rook takes, for example. Thanks very much for your bishop. Everything is protected. You have a knight against a rook. You're going to get slaughtered. So this position after queen c7 is just over. There's nothing to do about the knight being under attack. And that's a critical tactic to see. If you see rook c4, bishop f7, rook c5, bishop f7, and this position, if we just go back just to this moment, to see that this lineup is the one moment you could have taken advantage of, that's critical. Anish didn't play this way. The Indians are giving a real edge here after queen d4. There is defensive possibility, defensive resources here, attacking the rook, pinning it to the king, keeping the unit alive. So he's not worried about anything, for example, like queen to a2 check, because he can just move his king and everything is okay. The critical line the Indians are giving, however, is after queen to d4, and maybe Anish saw this, rook back to c7, now the trade on this square, and to play this particular ending, suffering rook and 3 pawns against bishop, knight, and 2, and I'll give it to the GMs here. What's your opinion about this position? Does black really have winning chances here?
Winning chances.
It's a draw, but it's better for black.
Better for black. There are winning chances.
No, big winning chances. It's just such an uncomfortable defense, I think.
Exactly. No, rook c5. How do you not play rook c5? I thought the key line, gentlemen, I'll throw it back to Maurice and Eric in a second, was rook c5, queen d4, queen c7.
Yeah,
I didn't think about rook c7. I thought about queen c7, and I thought that Anish should be happy. I didn't like what Vichy was doing at all. It was all very mystifying that he lost his queenside pawns.
Absolutely. We can take a look at that variation. Ask Eric and Maurice.
Yes, so you look at it, the Indians are giving king g2 in this position and saying that this position should be okay. The move, I guess you were looking at c3 as,
right? Yeah,
but knight takes on f7 is quite evil in this position. The main problem being that there's a mate threat on h8, and you can't take with the queen, obviously. And if you kick the legs out of the bishop, then suddenly queen h8 happens anyway, and then this skewer appears on the board, and suddenly the queen is hanging. Right. So that's why queen c7 doesn't really affect anything as far as white is concerned. You have to play rook c7 and work for that position.
Got it.
So that's a nice little tactic that the Indians are illustrating in that line. That is fine. But instead of this, if he just played after this move, rook to c7, this at least you have a chance.
Right.
You're talking about, I might win this game. I don't know what the odds are. Who cares? I have chances. The way he played, after bishop d5, he went down and played rook f8. That's it. Let's shake hands now. Because Anand just had to find this move, queen f6, and suddenly white is talking about sacrificing on g6 because of this pin. White's thinking, maybe I'll play knight g4 and play knight a6 and make you start thinking this rook is never leaving, this queen is never leaving, f7 is always hanging. Rook f8 is basically a draw offer. Find queen f6, sign the source sheets. It's time for me to start perpetual checking you or something, as happened in the game he played.
And actually to avoid losing.
Yeah, exactly. It's time to get a draw now. And they played a couple more moves. And I believe he played to queen a7 here. Queen a7 with this check threat in the position. So Anand went back to g2, and they just repeated moves all the way through. I think Anand may have tried a bit after king f3 to just change the position slightly. Check. King G4 was played, and now Queen back to A7 again with this problematic check, King F3, and they just played out the moves up to this point, and now King G4 and decided to take a draw. Rook F8. Gary's going to kick himself a lot this tournament. There were opportunities upon opportunities upon opportunities to win games. Giri could easily, and when I mean easily, be a +3 right now. Easily. I mean, without you saying, oh, no, come on, you guys, you're kidding. No. +2, definite, not even a question. +3, yes, very likely he could be a +3 right now and be the one that we've been talking about this entire tournament, defeating these top players. Instead, out of form, at least not putting enough into the games to be able to close the games out.
Yeah, a quality that Magnus Carlsen really exemplifies is positions like this. The games extend. This game finished way too quickly. Anish Giri, with a move like Rook F8, eliminates any possibilities of mistakes for White. White's Queen F6 is an easy move to find, just not finding the moves that... There might be two moves that are both eventually leading to, let's say, a draw, but one move puts the opponent, they have to find more and accurate moves to reach that position. He's not finding the most challenging pass. Credit this game, he did push for it, he did sacrifice a piece, but this game should have gone on a lot longer. White should have been tested a bit more. White actually ended up being allowed to find a forcing variation that shouldn't be allowed. I mean, Magnus Carlsen extends these games. He finds the moves that leave a little bit of tension, possibilities, and with possibilities, more ways to go wrong. And Giri has been working hard and getting good positions, but not following up with the most challenging replies there.
Again, it's 13 rounds in, guys, so people do get tired. It's a long tournament. Tension is high. But, boy, when you have your opportunities, you've got to grab them. Unfortunately, Giri wasn't able to do that for his fans today and had 13 draws in a row. Pretty incredible streak.
Mystifying game.
There's
so many moments in this game that I didn't understand what the two top grandmasters in the world were doing.
They're getting tired. They're definitely getting tired.
And, of course, 13 rounds. That's really, really hard. So it's easy for us to say, hey, wait a minute, didn't you miss a slightly improved version? But I can only say that I would have loved to play the Rook and 3 against the two pieces.
It's one of those dreams. Like, you cannot lose. You're pushing.
Lose.
Yeah, you're relaxed. Oh, yeah.
So that was big.
Now, we have two people tied at the lead. We asked our viewers, what do you think should be the correct way of determining a tie in the candidates tournament? We had this were what we thought were the possible choices. Head-to-head was 38%. Playoff, not surprisingly, winning, although only barely over head-to-head.
Because, as Maurice was saying, it does make a big difference. If I've beaten you already in the tournament, that's good. But I've always felt that the playoff is the best, full stop.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Number of wins got about 19% of the vote. That's still a fair number. And, of course, the obscure mathematical formula
that nobody understands.
This is what I don't like, is that there are a lot of options that you can explain to the viewers. But if I sat down here and I explained to you guys Sonnenberg Burger, you would switch channels immediately. It's such a boring, complicated mathematical formula that it doesn't make sense to explain, and it doesn't make sense that we have tournaments that are so important, are so supposedly viewer-friendly, and then they don't know who's winning.
Alejandro, I really feel very strongly about this because it's been the bane of chess forever and ever, is how do you make chess popular?
Yes.
Chess is a very, very complicated endeavor. When you come up with rules like Sonnenberg Burger, and you've got an audience that, first of all, you're going to have to educate and bring them up to some kind of awareness, and then you say, oh, and by the way, the rules aren't playoffs.
Yeah.
They're this complicated math. It's crazy. We're shooting ourselves in our foot.
And the two probable players that will be in that tiebreak, at least going into round 13, these are the players that are leading. This is Sergei Karyakin against Fabiano Caruana. They have faced a number of times. 1 win for Karyakin, 4 for Caruana, but 2 of Caruana's wins were with black.
But look at those 19 draws.
19
These are young men who have played each other and taken the measure of one another all around the world. 19 draws. They are familiar with one another.
That's a lot. And let's remember that as things stand going into round 13, let's not take into consideration the pending results of today. That is a bad sign for Caruana. A draw would be disastrous in that case because, let's remember, Sergei Karyakin has the better tiebreak over Caruana.
Right, and again, two of Caruana's wins are with black, and black is one of the best colors you can have in a game of chess.
It's only second best. As we have a phone call here joining us in the studio. Hello?
Hi, this is Jeff from Palm Beach.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. Yesterday you were talking about how to maybe make chess a little bit more exciting during the discussion. So as mentioned, like shortening time controls and eliminating draws. Personally, I think it'd be interesting to have maybe more chess 960, which would eliminate a lot of the computer preparation.
Well, thank you
for your comment there, Jeff. Fischer Random or chess 960, your thoughts?
I like Fischer Random. I mean, it's not a game that I play simply because nobody plays it, but I
explain it to the
viewers.
Who
So
may never heard
basically,
of chess
we start
960.
chess on a set starting position. You know, king, queen in the middle, rooks on the side, bishops on f1 and c1.
We have a fixed starting position.
Fixed starting position. The idea of chess 960 is that basically you scramble. Randomize within certain rules. For example, that you have bishops of opposite colors.
King in between both rooks.
King between both rooks, so you can castle. But with those points being taken into consideration, you still have 960 positions, legal positions available, which is why it's called chess 960. Some people call it Fischer random chess because, well, it is kind of a randomized system, and Fischer was the one that came up with it. It's interesting. I like it. I don't think that... I think people underestimate how quickly computers would nab at this game because there are certain patterns that repeat over and over.
Of course.
That being said, theory would be totally different. I don't think that it would be necessarily reduced, but we will look at it in a wider, different angle than what we do right now, which is more concrete, and I think that's good for chess.
I'm a big fan of Fischer Random or chess 960. I'm a big fan. But I remember playing in one of the tournaments in Germany that held the Mainz chess festival for Fischer 960, and I was playing it around with Artur Yusupov, one of the really elite grandmasters, candidates player. And I said, Artur, what do you think of chess 960? And he says, well, yes, sir. He says, I have a bad feeling that to save chess, you're destroying chess. That is to say, when you have a completely random position, the first dozen moves, what you're trying to do is repair all the deficiencies that the randomness has created. Yeah. Right? And that the starting position is perfect. And, well, we're destroying chess to save chess. That comment by Artur really stuck with me, and he's got a very valid point.
All right, what about you guys? What is your thoughts, Eric and Maurice, on chess 960?
I've played 960 maybe a couple of times in my life. I'm open-minded to it, but I kind of, what Yusupov mentioned there, I'm open to it. I'll put it that way, but I don't know enough about the game to speak too much about it, but I would be open. I wish that tournament that Yasser was talking about was still happening. They don't have it anymore. So I'd encourage some efforts to try that out and some variants, but I don't, I would like to see chess in its current format improve on some things that it already could. There are some easy fixes right now in chess itself.
I would say that I don't think 960 does anything to solve the problem, frankly. I think 960 is great. I love variants. I love any variant. Bughouse, let's make it happen. We saw them playing, what is that called again, with two boards at the same time. We saw Nakamura in the showdown, Nakamura versus Fabiano and Ho Yifan earlier.
Basque chess.
Basque chess, yes, Basque chess when Ho Yifan played against Parmigiano Negri. Basque chess, two boards at the same time. That stuff is fun. I like that. However, this is the deal. Are you going to play chess 960 and still maintain a 7-hour time control? I mean, you still have to fix the time control. You're still in the same place. So I think that changing up the positions, you talk about new people coming to the game, they're going to say, well, what, you set up the positions differently? You do it any way you want? Maybe the kids will get used to it and they'll say, it sounds great, whatever, we don't care. A lot of the science behind chess, the artistry behind opening theory and all that would sort of go. But I can live with it. It feels onerous for sure. I'm glad I don't have to prepare that stuff anymore because I'm not playing chess the way I used to. So there'd be much more of the theoretical questions for the younger players. However, unless you fix the time control and unless you deal with the draw issue, 960 will suffer from both those problems. 960 will find its draws as well, its ability to offer draw. Players can offer draw whenever they like, and you'll still have the time control issue where games might last 5, 6, 7 hours. And I think those two fixes, as you said, quick fixes, easy fixes, things that fans will enjoy, I think when you add those two elements, the game becomes a lot more fun, more consistently fun.
Yeah, it comes to mind. It's already hard enough for me to explain to a girl what chess is or the rules. If I have to explain chess and then afterwards chess 960, that's going to kill my date.
See, caller, that's the problem. It's all about Eric's
By the way,
dates.
thanks, Jeff, for calling.
Thank you for calling.
Very good one, Jeff. Seriously.
It's a good point, and I like to completely agree with Maurice. I mean, yeah. So you want to hear a joke?
Let's completely agree with
completely agree.
There's a lot of love happening on Easter Sunday today, guys. It's a lot of love.
Just a second. Let me pinch myself. Okay.
I'm going to tell you a joke. We're going to organize a tournament with Chess 960.
Okay.
We're going to make it 1 round a day, 7 hours a game.
Oh, I'm not playing.
Nobody's playing that.
No.
I mean, Chess 960 has always been rapid. And
Thank you.
why? Because it makes sense.
Yeah. No, if you wanted to organize a tournament, play 7 games of Chess 960 at 15-minute time controls,
Everybody's going to play.
I mean, that would be a fun,
Yes.
that would be, and make a barbecue as well.
And apparently a few beers.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. As well.
We're making a party now.
Is it time to? No, we still have 2 games pending. We can't really look at results.
No, and we have the 2 most important games still going on in Moscow. We are deep into the round right now.
6.5 hours?
6.5 hours of chess.
And 2 of the most crucial games.
They're still going on.
Standings.
We do have a phone call with us.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, yeah, Alejandro, how are you and the rest of the guys?
I'm good. How are you doing? Who am I speaking to?
This is John again in upstate New York. They let me come on again. So,
How are you? Okay, let's see. What's the question?
I gave it a lot of thought, and I want chess to be a worldwide phenomenon like any sport. And I think the football scoring system like they do in London maybe is a good, really huge first step. In other words, if you're going to be like Magnus Carlsen and grind it down in the drawn position and keep going and going until there's a winner, you deserve that extra point. You deserve 3 points rather than 2. I think that would stop a lot of the draws. It's just my opinion.
I'm sorry. I think I have Giri on the line and he disagrees.
Thank you, John. No,
Thank you.
So the soccer scoring system for chess right now, of course, you draw the game, you get a half a point. You win the game, you get a full point. You lose the game, you get a 0. But in the soccer or football world, as we know, in the leagues around the world, a victory you get 3, and on a draw both sides get 1 point.
Right.
Now, essentially, that system is great, and what you're doing, of course, is you're encouraging victories, and we all like to see wins. But there is a law of unintended consequences, right? Mm-hmm. You get situations where players are, they're very happy to win 1 game and lose 2. They get the 3 points. It would really impact. It would have a very meaningful impact on chess. There have been a couple of tournaments that has been tried, and in all the tournaments, as far as I'm aware, including the London Classic, it was actually very well received.
Yeah, it's an interesting suggestion. I've never given it too much thought, and I haven't seen that many tournaments that have employed the system.
There was Beal, Magnus.
There's been a few. There have been a few.
There was London Classics,
right?
Where it actually heightened the drama because a last round swing could be 6 points.
And I think that's a good thing for chess.
Keeping the drama alive.
Keeping the drama alive. I think I would be open to the possibility of the soccer scoring system, as they call it. Mm-hmm. It's not what I want to see change, but I think it would be a detail that I would also prefer over our standard scoring system. Then again, as I said in the interview, We don't need this. We don't need draws. It doesn't matter to me.
Let's toss it over to Maurice and Eric. Good question, gentlemen.
Excellent question. Our fans watching are coming up with the good stuff. We need your questions all the time to make this show interesting. Yes, I think that uneven scoring would be interesting. I think you try it after you change the time control, though. The first question is change the time control and deal with the draw issue, because you're still going to come back to that. Time control and draw issue. Players might take a little extra risk, but here's the reality. As we said, it is not like Anish was trying to draw today. It was not like he was trying to draw against Nakamura. It's not like he was trying to draw against Fabi. He simply screwed it up and drew, right? That's all that happened. So it's not like he's not trying to fight. And I think in this generation, people are more gladiatorial, more combative than ever. They're trying to win. The draw result is not what they actually want to see happen. And as much as I am against the draw, I hate penalizing the draw, because the draw is such a natural result from a fight. You're trying your best. Now, I do hate like quick draws where you repeat moves in 10 moves, and that's just completely ridiculous. Those I like to see outlawed completely. But in terms of the attempt to play, and you want to play 40 moves, 45, 50 moves, guys are battling for 90 moves, and it's still a draw, and you say, too bad, buddy, you're getting penalized for trying so hard. That's tough. I think that is tough. And to me, it still comes back to the most elegant solution is simply cutting the time control down, and that's going to make the games far more exciting to watch, far more thrilling to watch, and the players are still going to go all out. By the way, with that system that was just explained by our caller, Anand right now would be tied with Karyakin, I believe, because he'd have 4 wins, 12 points, and Karyakin would have 12 points as well off 3 wins. Is it 3 wins, 9? No, actually, no. The math would still be up in the air, so I thought I could just easily calculate that out. But it looks as though the score would still be, we still have to make some calculations to see what it would be, but Anand would be the one with 4 wins right now and be benefiting, and we'd be talking about him. If he were to tie at the very end, he'd be benefiting from having more wins. Certainly Karyakin would have a lead over Caruana if they remained tied, because Karyakin would have had more wins, and that would have just been embedded into the scoring system itself as a natural tiebreak.
And let's not forget that Giri would be just above Topalov.
Eric?
Anyway.
Quickly, get
no,
in there.
But
Maurice took all your
honestly,
time.
I think Maurice said the right things there. I love that he referenced like gladiatorial. I mean, for me, I really think, you know, the two guys, they played a hard-fought game. They neutralized each other, whatever happened before. Guys, you got 20 minutes, take a break, but you guys are back here for another game. I do want, you know, that's what I love about chess. I love the competitive nature and the competition, but I do want to see some decisiveness. So I'm all aboard his ideas there, that you guys play again. Until there's a victor. Until there's a victor, I like that.
Well, we do have another phone call on the line, as we're still waiting on some results in Moscow. Hello?
Caller.
Hello, this is Peter, and I'm from Mesa, Arizona.
Hello, Peter from Mesa.
Hey, I just had a question about just how the Grandmasters have been playing on the black side. Why haven't we been seeing more dynamic defenses like the Sicilian or the King's Indian defense, or even the Semi-Slav that give real counterattacking chances? Do you guys think that maybe with the results of Topalov, who's a very dynamic player, did that have any impact on their decision?
Thank you, Peter.
Thank
we
you,
had
Peter.
a very similar question about why aren't there more Sicilians and things like that.
Specifically Sicilians we were asked the other day.
Right.
Why don't we see more of them?
I'll take the first crack. As black, the idea is that, normally speaking, you're trying to neutralize white's advantage on the first move, and taking risks with black can really get punished at this level. So we're seeing a lot of very solid defenses, whether it be the Berlin or Italian games. We're seeing a lot of very solid, and I thought that we'd see a lot more of those dangerous weapons, if you will, with black in these rounds when players are forced to play for a win. So I'm not saying Anish made a bad opening choice or anything like that, but I'm just saying that it's tough when you're under the gun on the opening move, you're trying to equalize, and you're playing a very risky system.
Guys, Can I?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
please.
Eric, jump right in, baby.
I mean, I cannot really fully speak for the top levels of theory, but I for one, am very surprised there are not more Sicilians. We're talking about how, like, let's say Anand has had very strong white pieces. Most of the guys doing well right now, they've had problems with black, but very good with white. I think it's, you know, it's a matter of fashion there, but Anand recently had a very, very bad loss as white against the Sicilian, against a player not in the field, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, in December. A very, very nice game, and it almost takes one guy to just introduce it back in, maybe one or two ideas, but it's a combination of the field and the current fashion. But I do expect to see the Sicilian come back more in the future. I don't think it's, you know, the book is written on it yet. But it really has surprised me. The guys, I guess, have not decided to take that risk. And, well, we saw what happened to Topalov the other day, but it really, I think more could have been tried in that direction.
And
Okay,
sorry to interrupt you guys. We have breaking news
Very
from
important.
Moscow. 6 hours and 45 minutes of chess. Levon Aronian pressed very hard against Sergei Karyakin, but was unable to topple the defense of the Russian player. That means that game has ended in a draw, a huge result for the standings. It is currently Sergei Karyakin that is in the solo lead. Still pending on the result of Fabiano Caruana and Peter Sviller. We will take you through that game of Levon Aronian and Sergei Karyakin. It's unclear how many winning chances Levon had, but it was definitely white that was pushing all throughout.
It was a tough game. It was a really tough game. And I was saying I was mystified about the game of Anand.
Yeah.
There were some mystery moments in this game for me, and Maurice and Eric are going to take it through us. One thing I'd like to note that is extraordinary at this elite level is how the English opening has become the standard. I mean, we're talking about we're not seeing Sicilians, we're not seeing E4. Suddenly we're seeing Englishes and E4 exclusively, it seems like to me. It's wild. It's weird.
Right.
All right, gentlemen, what happened in this very, very important game?
Well, approaching that question the caller made earlier, I think this is a very important point that you made a great point. It depends on who's playing, right? Because if Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is playing in this tournament, which he has all rights to, it's very likely he'll be in the next cycle, given that he's one of the top players now and he's young and he's surging. If Ding Liren is playing, you'll see for sure some Sicilians.
Yeah.
You'll see some Kings Indians.
Yes.
These are people who believe in those openings. They feel like they can hold them against anybody. And it might be dangerous or risky, so to speak, but they're showing that they can play this. And the other guys have sort of settled against each other like, you know what, if I can just draw with black, then it's okay. But I think that those guys, with those openings in their pockets, especially if they're not doing so great in the first half of the tournament, they'll wheel out some strange birds and play them even against the top players and be comfortable. Now, this game, man, 101 move marathon. We're going to break down every move by move by. No, we're not going to do that. No way in the world. This game was a very long game, and it was pretty much drawn fairly early. Yasser, just going back to this position back here on the opening, I know you are not, I will go past master. This is your bread and butter right here. This is where you live. You could put up your feet and play this position. So I'm going to definitely concede to your expertise in this line. Why don't you take us through the nuances of this opening?
Well, in fact, this whole opening has been very popular. I still remember one of the really, really wonderful games between Magnus Carlsen and Vladimir Kramnik from the London Classic that, wow, I had me on the edge of my seat. It goes back really to the days of Bodvinnik. Essentially, a lot of people call this a reverse Sicilian. Yeah? Just
That makes sense.
That's what it is. And it's been discussed for, well, decades, and a lot of people have very strong views. My very strong view today, which has evolved over a long period of time, is that D3 is not the most energetic move in the position for white. Having said that, the players played a rather topical line, and we got to this position with knight e4. knight c5.
But yes, sir. You said D3 wasn't the most energetic move.
Sure.
You don't have to keep secrets now that you don't play chess so much anymore. Why don't
Good point.
Why don't you tell us all what you think is the
point.
right move in that position?
Okay, here it goes, guys. In the reverse Sicilian, where you're playing the accelerated variation of the dragon, one of the things that you try to do in the accelerated version of the dragon is to get in the move d7, d5 in one go, in one gasp, so to speak. I'm a very strong believer in the move b2, b3 here. If we make some normal moves for black, for example, I can show you what I mean. Castles, bishop b7, bishop e6, rook c1. And basically what I'm trying to do is to get in a position like this, where I go knight e4, attacking the pawn on e5. You make the very solid defensive move f6, and after I take, I'm not playing for much, but I'm playing for a little, and I've got what I consider a very small but significant edge. I've won a lot of endgames from these types of positions. So I think b3 is the most dynamic, and if you don't play b3, then you've got to play a3 and b4 and rook b1 and b5. I don't think d3 is the way to go.
No, I understand completely your reasoning on that, but I think Aroni here just wanted to strafe off theory a little bit. He wanted to play chess, basically,
yes.
As you said. We're being told we have a phone call also joining us in conversation as we're looking at the opening between Levon Aronian and Sergei Karyakin. Who is joining us here today? Hello?
Hi, this is Raphael from Wildomar, California.
Hi, Raphael.
Hi, just want to say happy Easter to you guys really quick. And I had a question about, we were talking about time controls over the last week, and you guys were talking today. You guys brought up the soccer scoring system. And I heard, I believe it was Alejandro say something about, you want to tackle the time controls before you tackle the point system, so avoid the draws. You don't deal with the draws secondly. My question is, do you think it's something that actually needs to be taken care of at the same time? Because if you shorten time controls, and I remember you guys mentioning something about, a lot of players early on are going to start getting into time trouble at the end of games. Do you think we're just going to see a lot of shorter draws instead of 90-move draws, or we're just going to see people panicking at the end and just kind of forcing draws at the end?
Not at all.
A very good question. Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you for joining us.
The caller is basically saying, you accelerate the time control, is that going to affect the player's play, and will they start forcing draws if they see they're getting down on the clock?
Not at all. These are not, no. Players,
Not at all?
Not at all. I think players play to win, and I think that the nature of a grandmaster is not to panic and draw every time. If you panic and draw every time, you're not going to get very far.
You're not playing chess.
You're not playing chess. These guys are fighters. These guys are, they know that time control is part of the thing. They're not going to take a draw just because they're down on time. I mean, let's remember that game that Grischuk played against Giri again in, what was it, London?
In London.
Where Grischuk is down to like ridiculous amount of time by move like 20. He has to make like 20 moves in less than 10 minutes. And every move
and he's
trying
not
to win.
making the increment in that.
He has no increment.
Right.
He's trying to win every single move. He's trying to put the pressure. He doesn't succeed at the end, that's true. But you can see that he had that fervor to going into this game, winning no matter what the time control was. And I think that shortening the time control will not give us earlier draws. It will not give us quicker draws. It will give us more decisive results and more fighting chess.
I'm going to turn it right over to Eric and Maurice for their thoughts.
Well, I had a question for the panel. It's kind of related to that question. How many of you guys have offered a draw to a lower-rated opponent when they've been in time trouble in a very bad position? Because as grandmasters, we have a bit of a psychological edge. I hope I'm not the only one to admit this. I've had completely lost positions and offered draws when they've been in massive time trouble because people get nervous, so I'm playing a grandmaster, and that's an advantage. Have any of you guys taken advantage of time trouble to offer a timely draw?
Well, what do you need time trouble for? You don't need time trouble. You know, it's ridiculous. I tell my students this all the time, but low-rated players, they see the big rating, they got the starry eyes, and you offer them a draw, and they're thinking, I think I'm going to take this draw because I might lose the game. That is the worst attitude you can have, but it's extraordinarily typical. Now, I can say, probably for most of us here, one of the reasons you get to the highest levels, become a grandmaster, is that self-belief. If I'm playing you and my position is better, don't even think about it. Back in the day when I was young, coming straight up out of Brooklyn, it was like, draw pictures because you're not drawing me in this position. I don't care who you are or what your name is. We got to play this one out. And if I lose, I lose. There's no kind of brownie points for drawing a player from a better, much better position. No way in the world. But yes, of course, all the time GMs are offering lower-rated players draws thinking, you're afraid, I know, you see my rating, you know I'm strong, I could beat you from this position. Well, if I thought I could beat you from this position, I wouldn't be offering you a draw. That's cue number one. Like, don't accept draws in that situation. What are you going to learn from just taking a draw just because you got a good position?
That reminds me of a story, actually. I was analyzing a game that Parimarjan Negi played against a lesser opponent who shall remain unnamed.
Protecting the guilty. Yes.
Titled but not a grandmaster.
Okay.
And Negi's lost.
Full
Put it
stop.
that way. Yeah, and they're analyzing certain variations. Now, Negi's a 2680 grandmaster. And, well, at this point, the lower-rated player says, well, I'm winning. And Negi says, well, yeah, but I'm not worried about it. I have successfully offered draws to better players in worse positions.
To the caller's questions, definitely whenever we make rules changes, there's going to be consequences, but I really feel very strongly that we have some really great chess grandmasters. They're going to adapt to whatever conditions you put them in. Yeah. Sure, maybe in the first place some unexpected draws are the result, but overall I think that that would really improve the game as well as the broadcast, the ability of the game. And I wanted to throw in one other thing. A dear friend of mine, Bruce Harper from Vancouver, BC, baby. He had a great idea for draw offers. You've probably heard it before if you watch the telecast. You offer me a draw, you're giving me an option of accepting, declining, or taking your position.
Okay.
Right? So if you accepted Harper's thought and the much weaker player offers a draw from a winning position, you go, excuse me, we're changing sides. That would cut out those draw offers.
Cut out a lot of those draw offers. That is for sure. That's pretty intriguing. I think we could do funny things like that in chess. I think that's worth it just to make the draw offer a lot more unpalatable. That's certainly interesting. But let's take a look at the game because I'm sure a lot of fans want to know what happened next. Knight e4, knight d5, bishop d2, a5, and the attempt here, knight c5. And it was pretty interesting to see that Aronian allowed this position on the board, rook b1, rook f b8, and suddenly it was black who had a very solid position when his bishop posted on the b3 square.
Yeah, black has, I mean, a very comfortable, very solid pawn structure, and I mean, as you know, some people mentioned, the English is like similar to a Sicilian, and you get that pawn to a4, get that bishop to b3, is usually a good thing. I mean, it's very hard to dislodge that. I'm not a big English player myself, but I feel like here black, as long as black can contain the bishop pair, which is white's main trump here, his structure is potentially better, and his pieces are quite fine. The knight has space on d4. That black has totally done okay in the opening.
And I thought black was fine, but then this happened after knight to a7. This maneuver with knight a7, bishop to b4, knight to b5. And this is where things got interesting. After knight e2, bishop to f7, e3, bishop to g6, and suddenly it was white who was starting to build a little something, improving pieces. As you can see, it didn't look like this maneuver necessarily got anything in the position. And now knight to d5, bishop dropping back to e1, sacrificing this pawn, and this is really where things turn into a lot of fun. Knight takes the pawn on a3, and now the intermezzo is queen hanging. Well, let me let your queen hang also on the c6 square. This is where all heck broke loose in the game. c6 on the board, and now, of course, there's a pin on the b line, so you can't do anything about that. So he dropped the back to dropped over to e7, keeping an eye on his knight, and now queen to a2, bc6, rook c6, and white had opened up the game for the bishops with that amazing maneuver or set of moves when he took the pawn on a3. The game is now open. Black has an a pawn that's passed. The c7 pawn's under pressure. This bishop is woken up on the diagonal. This queen on this knight. And I got to give Alejandro credit right here because when bishop f7 appeared on the board and we were looking at this game, and Alejandro said, I don't know. What about the move rook c5? And we were looking at it, looked strange, and then all of a sudden, there, Aronian had played the move. Alejandro, what are your thoughts that led you to think of this move?
Well, it was a very tactically sharp position, and I guess my thought process was this. There's a weak knight on a3 that I really want to exploit. We can get the position on the board
I'm
right
on the
here.
board right there.
And
so you were saying...
I'm a pretty basic player. I want to kill it. So the only way that it's being defended right now is by the queen on e7. I wanted to block that defense. And what really led me to this move was the fact that black just seemed to threaten something. He played bishop f7, and it seems like the knight on d5 is threatening some kind of discovery because the bishop on f7 will be attacking my queen on a2.
Exactly.
And I like these kind of tactics where I just don't care about your threat, and I make my own threat.
Right.
And in this case, after rook c5, it seemed complicated, but I wasn't sure exactly how black was going to defend the knight, and that's what led me to this move.
Yeah, it's like calling buttercups. I challenge you to execute your threat.
Yes,
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it. Yeah.
And I'm going to take the knight on a3. I'd like to go back just for a quick second because I actually thought that Levon had actually been outplayed in this position.
Right.
I thought that Black's build-up on the light squares had given him a very comfortable position. And this move, knight takes a3, was a kind of like who let the dogs out kind of move. Because after c6, the position has exploded. I mean, my gosh. And now I thought that after rook takes c6, it was actually Levon back in the driver's seat. I really like White's position. And your move rook c5, which was played, I was shocked by Sergei's reaction, which was to sacrifice a piece.
But I think it was actually
quite
good because
it was a good decision. I thought that if he wanted to try to hold the material.
Yeah, rook b3 holds the material. Maybe Maurice can take us through what happens after the move. Rook b3, which I thought was the more natural move, but I actually think Sergei Karyakin's resource was better.
Knight e3, sacrificing the piece.
Well, yes, rook to b3 in this position, defending the knight, a very tricky defense because this rook is also defending the knight through this pawn. You know, in Chinese chess, they have the piece called the cannon, and the cannon only captures things if there's something in the way. So, for example, right now in this position, this rook is able to capture this pawn, but it can't take the knight. That's right here. You can only jump over and take that pawn. I know, it's strange, but that's how the cannon works. It moves just like a rook, except it goes through things over to the thing that's on the other side. Here, this piece is acting sort of like a cannon. It's protecting its knight through this pawn, because if you play rook takes rook, pawn takes, suddenly, wham, there it is. The piece is guarding that pawn, and now queen takes on b3. And there's some tactics, of course. You could try a move like knight to e3, but queen to b7, now hitting the rook and hitting the knight. So the discoveries, one of the great things, one of the great traits of really strong players is they're not afraid so much of discovered attacks. That is key. That players might say, wait a minute, that knight moves, something dangerous might happen. And that knight has multiple moves, by the way. This knight has so many squares to go, and it could go to b6, c3, f4. You're looking around, where did the knight go? But players have learned to restrain the natural fear tendency to be afraid of these kind of discoveries and say, concretely, what do you do? I don't think I'm going to necessarily be afraid of that idea. And here, it's clear that Black has no real discoveries to count on. Could play a move like c6. White still has some kind of edge, but not the edge that's going to lose the game for Black. Black's going to be able to put a knight back on b5 any second. So here, the explosion, however, occurred. He didn't play the natural rook to b3. He played the far more funky knight takes on e3 with a straight line discovery, as we mentioned. And it's here, Alejandro, that we thought that Black was just completely lost, or at least going down strongly here. Rook takes on b8, rook takes, and now why not just play queen takes on a3? But things were not so easy as it turned out. I'm going to give it back to you, Alejandro, because you noted some of the key variations here.
Yeah, here I was analyzing this move knight c2, which I thought was pretty key to the variations. After queen takes, instead of queen takes a3, you go knight takes e3, rook takes b8, which I thought...
a3, rook b8 was your key move.
Yeah, rook takes b8, queen takes a3. And here we were analyzing the move knight c2, which I thought was the key.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's very nice because, of course, the rook while it defends the c2, oops, my arrow's a little bit off. While it defends the c2 square, the rook is pinned to the queen on a3. Okay, continue.
So here, queen c1 I thought was nearly forced.
Okay.
Queen c1.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, because queen c3 has its own issues that I thought later, but I thought queen c1 was more
Okay,
flexible.
was the most precise.
Yeah, a knight d4.
Knight d4.
And here's where I wasn't sure what's going on in the position, because black not only has some real threats, but also a3, a2, and suddenly the pawn is difficult. Yes, you're up a piece, I get it.
I'm up a piece.
You're up a piece. But the bishop on g2, the knight on e4, the bishop on e1, the rook on c5, they're doing nothing to catch the passed pawn. And immediately you have some threats that you have to deal with, and that's this pawn.
Can I eta?
You can eta if you want, but I can still go queen somewhere. I think d8 is also okay in this position, and I'm not so sure what the evaluation of this position is. I mean, maybe the computer can find something, but to me...
This was dangerous in your mind.
The engine, as a matter of fact, hasn't found anything. It thinks that white has a slight edge by pulling the rook all the way back and guarding on this square here. And they feel that
pulling all the way back to c2.
First. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Let's go back here. First, you want to guard against a nice little fork, so that's why we put the bishop on f1. And now you have to guard your piece. Best move, bishop back to g8. And now white should play the move rook to c3. And this position, of course, black's the one with his big old passed pawn on the a4 square. Is it going anywhere? It looks blockaded, but it's going to be these pieces tying themselves down to defend against his pawn's advance. And it's going to be pretty easy to guard this pawn as well. The engine after queen to f8, another interesting move, saying that black is perfectly fine, basically, in this position. It's not easy at all for you to corral this piece, get anything real going on. Don't forget, there might be a little funky thing on this side, too, as well. So it seems as though this position actually would have been fine, and very hard to evaluate this with the white pieces for Levon to go into this line.
I think it's remarkable that black has just a pawn for the piece, and we see the computer give such a balanced evaluation. I can't recall too many games of mine where I sacrificed the piece for a pawn and didn't have immediate compensation. This isn't even after immediate. This is like a long-term compensation for just one passed pawn. White's pawn structure, the 4 pawns are not doubled, tripled. This is pretty remarkable to understand that and to evaluate this as playable for black, because it is not a common imbalance to just have one pawn for the piece and be okay.
And a pawn that's not going anywhere, by the way.
No,
it's not like it's so easy to just push it down the board. And the engine's not even evaluating it as going down the board. Let's show you the engine's top line right now. Knight c5 is the first line going after this pawn. This is just strange stuff that the engines do, so we're just going to look at it just to understand. Bishop to d5, now with the threat of knight down with check. You cannot bring your bishop here because of knight e2. So now the move f4. Natural, trying to break that side down. You want to know what the engine's move is here, guys? You don't want to know what the engine's move is. You really don't want to know. Well, I'm going to tell you. G5 in this position. G5, attacking on this side, getting the queen into the game to attack. And this is why, Yasser, we retired when we did. When moves like this becoming commonplace, allowing crazy chess moves like this one. And now Eric just threw down this move on the board just to show the line, knight check, king up to f2, queen to h6. And suddenly it is black who is steaming with an attack with minimal piece play, attacking on this side. Completely insane variation. And Levon must have looked around, and I'm not sure he saw a G5 or even bothered with it, but he probably just looked and said, I don't see how to win that position. I'm up a piece, but that A-pawn sucks. I've got to deal with it. It's kind of craziness in this kind of line.
This is what I call alien chess. I mean, I don't get this at all. Hey, I'm a piece up. I would have spanked this down and had problems later. I understand. But this is really, really, really hard, even for the most sophisticated grandmasters in the world to understand.
Absolutely.
I mean, the audience is going to be completely at a loss. but White's a piece up.
Yeah, but it's not so clear
it's
as
positional
we're telling.
edge.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Wow, very extraordinary, extraordinary game. Continue. Hold on, I believe we have a call.
Yeah, I think we have a caller online.
I'm sorry.
Hello?
Yes. My name is Jim. I'm calling from Charlotte, North Carolina. What is the effect of chess on personality development?
What is the effect on chess on personality development?
Don't ask Eric.
Hold on, Doja. As we know, the problem with chess is it'll make you brilliant.
It's awful. Side effects.
It's awful side effects. Yeah. You'll be all-knowing, all-seeing.
Overthinking everything.
Overthinking everything. Gentlemen, I'll turn it to yourself.
Well, you missed what Maurice just threw at me.
Make you Hansen?
I said don't use Eric as an example.
Yeah, I can't speak. I can't answer this question. No personality after chess.
How does chess affect your personality?
Actually, I read a book called Chess for Success. I wrote a book, called Chess for Success, about how chess benefits young children, and there are a number of studies that show how positive the effects are on young people for playing chess, with learning to make decisions, take tough decisions, take responsibility for their decisions, learn about consequences, certainly learn critical thinking skills, all those things that are beneficial for young people. I think one of the great things about chess, when I talk about decisions, it's not every day that you learn, even in school, to make good decisions, to be challenged moment to moment. Make a decision, make a decision. A lot of times you're taking in knowledge, you're evaluating that knowledge, and then regurgitating it on an exam to show that you got that answer or you've imbibed the knowledge properly. However, making tough decisions, here's another tough decision. Wait a minute, you thought your decision was good? I'm going to try to trick you and challenge you to make another good decision and do it again and do it again. That is one of the great things about chess, that it teaches you to make decisions constantly in a safe format. It's just a chess game. You can lose it. You can play another one. You can enjoy yourself. But move after move, you have to make decisions. And that's the kind of thing in life that all of us have to learn how to do, is to make consequential decisions and then live with those decisions, whatever the case may be, to try to bounce back. And I think that chess is one of those great tools for helping developing great personality traits in young people.
Thank you. I think I just have to say that for myself, one of the things that really helped me was that I was a young boy starting chess. I was 12 years old, and I got drawn into this very adult world of chess where I could talk with like 50 and 60, 70-year-olds, and it really helped me mature very rapidly. We always talk about chess in the 5 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, reasoning, responsibility. Chess teaches you all of those things and much else besides. And I just was very grateful that chess came along in my life at the time it did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the maturity, I think, that chess forces upon you, it's a welcome thing. It forces you to deal with a lot of things that you're not dealt at that age necessarily. I mean, things like dealing with loss, dealing with
the emotional crisis.
The emotional crisis that you go through chess. It's such a passionate game because you devote so much of yourself into it that as a person you have no choice but to grow.
Exactly.
And that's I mean, at least that's what I saw from a lot of people playing chess.
I couldn't agree with you more. Chess is so very emotive, as is sports. And I had to deal with my emotions, which is very hard, right? You know, and it was really fantastic. Maurice, finish up with what happened in our very important co-leaders game.
Absolutely. So this was the critical moment in the game, and of course, instead of taking, he played rook takes b2, queen takes, knight takes on g2, king takes, and now a3. And now the pawn had gone further down the board, making it very difficult for white to do anything. Queen d8, queen c7, and now this trade of queens and bishop d5. Yes, down a piece is black, but look at this beast, that pawn steaming down the board, absolutely going quickly. And, you know, he tried a lot of moves here, but once the pawn landed on this square and he had to go bishop to c3, now it was clear that pretty much black was out of the woods. It's very hard to challenge that pawn on a2. And if we jump many moves later to this position with the king on d2, he tried. You see, it's still the salient feature is that pawn on the a2 square, and it still didn't change. You jumped way down to this position after a trade of rooks. Still that pawn is sitting on a2. How does he get rid of this stupid pawn? It's hard to do. They played a lot of moves and finally traded. See, we're still down. This is move 90, folks. We go down to move 100. Is right here, knight to e4, and he traded off pieces here. King takes on e4, and even here he had to accept that he would not be able to win this game. This trade of pawns will happen. The king will have to come over here while this king gallops on this side and able to stabilize the position. Karyakin with a huge draw for him. He did not want to lose today going into tomorrow, so he takes a half-a-point lead on Caruana in the tournament, with Caruana still with a game pending. But this was a big result for the Russian in the driver's seat at the moment, especially since he has the tie-break edge on Caruana. If Caruana only draws today, then Karyakin all of Russia is dancing, because a draw tomorrow by Karyakin with the white pieces, a very likely result, has him winning the tournament and going on to play Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, he's a massive favorite if Caruana draws. It's, to make an analogy, it's like, it was on the 5-yard line and Karyakin made another, stand right at the goal line. I mean, for him to evaluate this position, down a piece, and go for it and say this is wrong is impressive, because the other variation was very playable, but I agree with Alejandro that Karyakin made the right decision, and that was not easy to decide to give up the piece for a pawn and play the position out. Even though immediately it seems like it's okay, it's just you still have these questions long term, like shouldn't that extra piece say something in the end? But no, that pawn on a2 on a light square, untouchable by white's extra dark squared bishop, it meant that white needed to spend too many resources corralling that pawn to have enough presence on the king side, where you need to keep some pawns on the board if you're white, and they're all on the same side. Unfortunately, that was not to be, but really that all comes down to Karyakin evaluating the position correctly.
Showing his stuff in the tournament, Karyakin, leader early on. Still, it's hard to lead a tournament from start to finish. He lost that lead. He won a game, importantly, to tie back with the lead, and now in a beautiful situation going into tomorrow's round. He is hoping and praying that Fabi draws now in this game, because then his chances of winning the tournament, I think, have to be up at around 50, 60%. Well, actually, with the drawing rate, actually, it's more like 80%. If Fabi draws this game today, 80% chance that Karyakin will emerge as the victor in this competition.
Gentlemen, it's such an exciting, dramatic. Don't forget that Vichy and Anand can still play the spoiler. You're talking about Sergey and Fabi finishing the tournament at +2, and Sergey claiming victory. Not so fast. If Vichy were to win his final round, he would come up to +2, and then the tie breaks favor Fabi.
That's actually still in dispute.
I'm sorry. I thought it was clear.
You would think so, but I've heard from reports from Moscow that one arbiter tweeted that that's not the case.
Be serious.
Well, it seems like the rule, even though it should be clear, is not that clear.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Please take us through it. What did the arbiter say?
It was just one tweet, so it basically said that if Karyakin wins the turn,
ties for first,
even if Anand is in the mix, it will be Karyakin that takes it away. But to me, that is unclear.
Whoa!
To me, that is unclear.
Now the whole chess world would be in a tizzy. I don't understand.
No, I don't understand either.
We'll have to get clarification on that one. We do know this, however. One game is pending, and it's absolutely vital.
Absolutely key game still going on between Fabiano Caruana and Peter Svidler. But first, let's take a look. This is going to be, honestly, a two-horse race.
Right.
It seems that Karyakin is
Thanks to his draw,
is clearly the favorite at the moment as things stand, with one result pending. Let's take a look at how they fare against world champion Magnus Carlsen. They would be playing him one of them will be playing him in November, seems very likely. Caruana versus Carlsen, 5 wins. That's a lot of wins for a player. But again, 8 losses, that's plenty.
Yes, indeed. In those 10 draws, they stack up. But in the Karyakin Carlsen, a lot more sedate. Only 4 victories out of 19 games. They play very, very closely. 1 win for Sergey, 3 wins for Magnus, and 15 draws.
Right.
I'm sorry to be nationalistic. I'd sure like to see Fabi in that matchup. But but we're not going to leave until we get a result.
No, this is a key moment in the tournament.
Today in chess is supposed to be 2 hours. We understand, but we're fixated on this game, and we can't talk too much about it, only that it has our undivided attention.
It definitely has our undivided attention. We'll be taking a close look at this game. As soon as it finishes, we'll update you with the results and what that means for the tournament as a whole.
Quick question. Rook and bishop versus rook. When I have played that ending myself, I've always scored the maximum.
Really?
Always.
That's an interesting.
And I've had it about 5 games. Against grandmasters as well. I mean, in fact, always against grandmasters. Have you ever had the rook and bishop versus rook?
Well, maybe we should talk about weird endgames. I mean, for example, the Aronian-Karyakin game to me was extremely weird. We had a extra knight for a pawn.
On
that
A2.
was on A2 with an extra pawn on the king side, and those are incredibly strange.
With different
with opposite color bishops, which makes it very difficult, right? I mean, those are the kind of endgames that I think I do very well in. I remember that I had a game against Julio Becerra here in the St. Louis Chess Club.
Very strong grandmaster.
A very strong grandmaster, and I had the extra piece, and he had a bunch of pawns. But I was able to control all of them and actually win the game because of a very specific pawn formation that kept his king inside. And it seems like it all really boils down to whether, when you can take the pawn, for example, in the game Levon against Sergey, if you can take the pawn on A2, if the king is far away enough. And in this case, the king just came out too easily into the action.
Right. So he was able to keep the balance. But the whole point is, in this endings, you have to be very, very knowledgeable about certain endings. To my mind, bishop and knight. Have you ever had bishop and knight versus king?
I have never had bishop. I will tell you, I have never had bishop and knight versus king. I've never had bishop and rook versus rook. I've never had knight and rook versus rook. I've never had queen versus rook. I've never had any of these endgames that everybody constantly talks about. It never happened. It never happened. It just never happened.
That's wild. You see, Maurice. This is what I'm talking about. The children of the computer. Not only don't they have any culture, they just don't have any experience. Do you feel me? Do you feel me, Maurice?
Eric, come on, stand up for us. Come on, what is this?
I had an endgame, I don't want to talk weird endgames. I offered a draw when I had 2 knights against the pawn.
In the winning one? Was it a winning one?
Was it a winning 2 knights versus pawn?
Probably was winning.
But wait a minute, you had the 2 knights and you offered a draw?
I had the 2 knights.
Why would you offer a draw?
And we invited this guy to the commentary?
A guy died 5 feet away from me during the endgame.
What?
That was at the Olympiad. There was a well-known story, 2014 Olympiad. A player had a heart attack during the final round. I was playing close to them. I had 2 knights. I did not know that it was even... I'll admit, no, my endgame knowledge was lacking there, but I also could not sit down and figure the position out when that happened beside me. That is a chess story in itself. For those who are playing the final round of the Olympiad, somebody unfortunately died during that round, and I was right there, and I had the 2 knights. I just wanted to call it a day. But it turns out I can try to push for a win there, and I definitely should have done that.
What a way to cast a cloud over the broadcast.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Oh, gee, we had such a jovial mood.
You guys were making fun of me. I just had to say that the circumstances were different.
We were making fun of you. Let's bring it down to this level.
I'm a peacekeeper,
Eric, what can
guys.
I say? Thanks for sharing. That was heartfelt. Hey, look at that.
Happy Easter to everybody watching.
The whole production staff, the chess club, our panel, and everybody is safe and happy and healthy and sharing their chocolates. I got a couple bunnies in front of me. I'm keeping them. These are my bunnies. My bunnies, guys.
Yeah.
Well, my bunnies are a bit different, Yasser, and I'll take them as well.
Wow.
They got my name on it, okay? Maurice, my name, okay?
Hey, dude, I'm not even into chocolate like that. I got enough chocolate right here, baby.
Okay.
Come get your chocolate.
So, rook and bishop versus rook. Maurice, have you ever had that ending? In a tournament game, of
In
course.
a tournament game, no.
Okay. How about bishop and knight versus king?
Nope.
How
Not in
about
a
two
tournament game.
bishops versus king?
Never. Usually the guys are dead before that. No. Never two
I
bishops.
can't believe you guys. I mean, I've had it 5 times in Grandmaster play. It's a remarkable.
Which one?
Rook and bishop.
Rook and bishop.
I've never had two knights versus pawn. Never.
Sorry to interrupt this fascinating topic, but we have breaking news
What
from
happened?
Moscow. I am being told that after 116 moves of chess, Fabiano Caruana has drawn his game against Peter Svidler.
No! No!
Very unfortunately, I am being told from several sources, missed a win.
What?
In a rook and bishop versus rook endgame. We will have to take a look at it. It was not a basic endgame. I'm being thrown the moves on my screen, but...
It is a basic ending. What do you mean it's not a basic? Rook and bishop versus rook is a basic ending.
I've never looked at it once. But
I'm aghast. I'm aghast. And you guys say that you guys... How did you guys get your Grandmaster titles? This is just unbelievable.
In Costa Rica.
Yes, sir.
Anyway.
In Costa Rica, in Canada.
No, it was in Greece during the recession. I told you already.
Oh, during the recession. That very important twist of fate.
So
The
this
recession.
is the situation. Karyakin and Caruana still in the lead in this tournament, but it is
Yes.
Karyakin with the better tiebreak. Going into the final round means that Caruana's going to need to win. In order to not let things get out of control, we still have this controversy whether if Anand catches them, whether Caruana would have the better tiebreak then. That seems to remain unclear as head-to-head. Apparently some people are interpreting it as only between 2 players and not between the group of people tied.
How can it not be between the group
Well,
of people tied? But okay, this is one arbiter's opinion.
That's one
and
arbiter's
we'll get
opinion
it, we'll
from
get it.
Moscow.
We will nail this down by tomorrow,
Yes.
100%, because this is huge.
Huge for the tournament.
If Caruana has to play absolutely for a win, we understand. In truth, realistically, he has to.
He has to play for a win.
He
Caruana
can't count
must win tomorrow against Sergei Karyakin.
Or Sergei Karyakin is the challenger.
Or Sergei Karyakin is the challenger no matter
Full
what.
stop.
If Sergei Karyakin draws tomorrow, it seems like it's done.
Depending on the outcome of the
And the tiebreak rule.
And
of course, if Karyakin wins tomorrow, he is the challenger to Magnus Carlsen. So it's going to be between these 2 gentlemen at the very top. It's either Sergei Karyakin or Fabiano Caruana that will challenge Magnus Carlsen in November. That's it. 2 people left in the race.
Gentlemen, take us through the game. This was huge, and we now have all 4 results.
Well, I think that it's not about taking you through the game. We're at 115 moves, 116 moves. Going over that game would be very painful. I think the critical moment really occurred in this game late. You know, we could go back to a position like this, actually. Well, I will go to one position in the game, right here at rook to c8. This moment here was critical. When he was able to win this c-pawn and get an extra pawn in the game, this pawn was not really defensible because after rook to e4, then simply a move like rook c6, he could give up this pawn if he wants to. If he gets the a pawn, he's running. He's running. That pawn is fast, very fast. So he would have to be very careful in this position. So that's a possibility. Also, f3 was in the position, I believe, as well. So rook to c8, rook to e6, check, king over. And this is where he was able to win a pawn right there. That's where he got his extra pawn from. And we'll pick it up right at this moment in the game where he played this nice move, king to g2. And then after king f7, he allowed this pawn to go off the board. But very quickly, he was able to go and win this pawn here on g4. And that's where he was able to pick off this one. Then it took him quite some time, in fact, all the way down, was it until here. He got his king over and they liquidated pawns on this side. And now after rook f5, he was able to play rook a6. In this moment, 2 pawns up, 2 additional pawns. But what's the problem? The problem is that they're so close to each other. First of all, a lot of endings with bishops off are drawn. But very critically, this bishop is ready to sacrifice itself for these 2 pawns and create that ending that we were discussing, the idea of a rook and bishop versus rook. And in fact, guys, I'll let you pick it up from there on move 62. 62 moves, all that work to get to this position area and get this knowing that the guy could sacrifice a piece and get back to an ending that is definitely hard to defend, but is known to be a book draw.
I mean, if you're Fabiano, you can't be kicking yourself too much. I mean, he
pressed.
He maximized. I mean,
certainly did.
Sometimes chess is just like that. You win a pawn or 2 pawns, and with perfect play, it's a draw. And today I don't see really what he missed. He played a good game, and well, as you said, it's a draw, unfortunately.
Well, 62.
With A and C and H and F pawns are notoriously known for being, if you're going to be up 2 pawns,
you don't want to be up those two.
You do not want to be up those
split
pawns. A and C, H and F,
if you will. They're just very hard to win. But I'm going to let Yasser, who's definitely, I would think, the endgame expert among this group, without question. Yasser, why don't you take us through the rest of this? At move 62, this position happened. And then very soon, the sacrifice of the bishop for the pawns happened, and then we have this technical ending.
Well, first of all, should we just do the standings before we jump into the game itself?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the standings after 13 rounds of chess over in Moscow. It's Sergei Karyakin and Fabiano Caruana with 7.5 points out of 13. They are on +2, and the only 2 people that can currently challenge Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship in November. Even though Vichy Anand is within striking distance, let's remember that Sergei Karyakin and Fabiano Caruana play each other tomorrow. That means that at the very least they'll get 8 points, and due to tie breaks, Vichy Anand is definitely not going to be able to participate in the World Championship. Peter Sviller, Anish Giri, Levona Ronian, and Nakamura all have 50%. They're mathematically eliminated. They'll be playing for the remaining prize fund tomorrow, while Vachier-Lagrave is packing his bags and looking for the earliest flight back to Bulgaria.
Very good. So I'd like to get the complete clarification on the tie breaks and whether or not Vichy can play a role of spoiler or not. But essentially, we're getting to a position where I'm told somewhere about these parts, we got this rook and bishop versus rook, as Maurice was pointing out, and we got to a position, where is it? The player, keeping in mind that Fabi can torture his opponent for 50 moves, right?
Yeah, there's the 50-move rule in chess, which means that if there are no captures or pawn pushes in 50 moves,
right,
the game is drawn. And in this case, we're just counting down time.
This looks like, to me, a position I know that is a win.
This position is winning.
This at this moment, this
is winning. But,
right.
But the technique. Show us the technique.
He has played bishop, and I don't understand bishop f2 at all.
Well, it's
just
not correct.
Now I actually have to recall how the win goes.
Do you play rook b1 to draw the rook to h3?
Rook b1, threatening checkmate on this square. You can't play king a5 because the bishop on d4. Why does my mouse always fail me at those crucial moments? The bishop on d4 defends the b6 square. You're not running. I checkmate you here. So the only move to avoid checkmate is rook a3. Okay? Now, where is my checkmate coming up here?
I'm curious, Yasser.
I'm telling you, I don't think it's trivial.
I think it's trivial.
I mean, I'm saying it's there. I just don't think it's trivial.
Okay, if I check you, and if you go here, now I've got you from a different angle, don't I?
What? Which angle?
Okay, yeah. This one?
So,
no, king a2. King a2 is still in the game. Oh, dear. Just a second. I know this is, I mean, it's...
I mean,
just a moment.
Yasser, I'm not going to lie to you. I cheated. I cheated, and I asked the engine,
okay,
how do you do this?
Whoa.
And I don't get it.
Okay, come on.
This is beyond my comprehension of chess.
Okay.
So, in this position from the very start, right?
From this moment.
From this moment, I will simply give you...
I don't understand this move, bishop f2, by the way.
Bishop f2 is incorrect. That's true. Okay, let's go back to...
Right.
We're not quite there yet.
Yes, we are.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Go back a few. The rook's back on b7.
Don't
go back.
Guys.
Go back. There you go. In this position,
yes.
After rook
h4, pinning the bishop to the king.
Yeah, black played rook h5. And now the correct move apparently is rook b2.
Okay.
Or rook b1 also works. rook
the
H.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, then rook b1 makes more sense if it works.
Okay, so rook b1, rook a3.
Well, okay, rook b1 if you guys want, rook h3.
Yes. In order to block the check on a1 with rook h3.
Yeah, then rook b6.
Threatening checkmate once again from a different side, forcing rook a5. Yeah.
King a5 gets mated quicker, so rook h5.
Right.
And apparently here the key move is bishop f6.
But that's the same formation. That is the winning formation, the bishop on f6. In these endings, from what I remember, the bishop on f6 guards the h4 square, and that's the key. Black gets into Zugzwang. He doesn't want to be on the side. In these endings, the rook doesn't want to be on the first rank. I mean, it wants to be on the first rank, excuse me.
Here's where it gets a little tricky, because
Okay,
that's
take
all
it through.
true, but after bishop f6, black has rook f5.
Okay. Rook f5 looks very straightforward. Yes.
The key is bishop c3. And then you kind of repeat. Bishop c3, you force bishop, rook f4 check.
And by the way, you're threatening, now this is a winning threat.
Yeah.
So now the rook, which had previously checked us on this square.
Now it's checking you from f4, and the bishop on d4 dominates the rook.
So you
it doesn't have...
And it can't go to the third.
So it can't go to the third.
The point is that the rook, when it's further away, is okay. But the rook, when it's this close, that bishop gets it involved. And it's the Zugzwang that he gets into in this ending that causes it to be the case. You have to follow all the moves and all the nuances here. But the point is that you don't want to be this close, because the bishop gets involved in dominating that rook, and suddenly the rook can't help out in the defense.
Yeah, and
So after rook b4 check.
King a5, you go rook b2.
And
rook
now
b7,
here,
isn't it?
So
Or is
here
it
I'm
rook
threatening
b2?
this checkmate over here.
And you can't go to f6.
And you can't go to f6, because once the rook was on h5, remember a moment ago the rook was on h5 and it could step back, but having forced the rook to the f-file closer to the action, the bishop starts to dominate the rook.
So king a4?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are making it sound easy, but rook b7 just made it harder because you can go back to a4.
I'm sorry. So what should I have played? I apologize.
You play...
I accept your apology.
Rook b2 is instead the move.
Rook boy 2.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the correct move. Okay.
And then king a6.
Oops, I've got the wrong... No, what have I got wrong? So bishop...
I'm simply following what the computer's telling me, so at this point I'm not thinking.
So coordinate with me for a second,
Yes.
Alejandro. Bishop d4.
Rook f5. Rook b4
f5.
check is correct.
Well, thank you very much.
King a5 is fine, but here you don't go to b7, you go to b2.
Okay.
King a6.
Okay.
Rook b6 check is what my computer's throwing at me.
Okay.
King a5.
Yes.
And here rook e6.
Right. So now you're threatening a mate in 2 with bishop to c3 check, king to a4, and rook a6 check and mate.
That forces
so king
rook
a4
f4.
or rook f4?
That forces rook f4.
Yeah, because if king a4...
Sorry?
What's if king a4?
If king a4, you simply go bishop e5.
Nasty.
That's nasty.
That's why the rook goes to e6,
Okay.
not anywhere else.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
And now you're threatening...
And you have in this position for black no disruptive rook to f4 check.
Right.
Because the bishop is controlling the rook on f5.
On f4, yeah.
On from
So
going to f4.
after rook f4, instead of instead of king a4,
Clear.
rook f4 in this position.
Gotcha. As the very best move.
As the very best move, rook e7 apparently. And
threatening the checkmate.
And now, well, either the computer wants to give up the rook, but obviously you're going to play rook f6. Well, there's nothing to play here. It's
No, it's over.
The f square is
Again, it's that rook on the
So-
third rank being the problem.
Right.
Once you suck the rook off, I say third rank, the board is turned to me, so it's on the f file. But as long as you suck the rook off the side,
And
the bishop
by the
begins
way,
to
guys,
bring it closer
just by
to
the
the
just by the way, I'm not actually sure he was winning because
he has to get to move 116.
this is 116.
Wow. Could they claim a draw? Could black have claimed
Yes,
a draw right now?
if there wasn't a 50 move.
Because the move that black makes in this position doesn't matter what it is. If I play rook f6, the next move is 117. That's beyond 50.
Get out.
He was drawn anyway.
Wow, with perfect play.
With perfect play. I
more than
think.
50.
I'm not sure. We have to go over.
Right.
Because
It was move 66. There's no
we're talking
question
about one
that.
move difference, and I know that you guys were being a little inaccurate there, whereas the
Right.
computer wanted to be precise.
Of course it does.
It seems
we got a special guest too.
we have a special guest with us on the phone from Croatia. Hello? We'll get him back. Okay.
I mean, technically,
We have some
our
technical
special
issues.
guest.
We'll get him. We'll get him
trying
right
to get
back.
Garry
Okay, so
Kasparov
you're
back.
saying
So we're
that
gonna
in the
make
winning
that
moment that Fabi may have had, the 50 moves were almost exhausted,
Yes.
so he
I
wouldn't have
think-
been able to win the game.
I think it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Guys, come on. Well, I mean, here we are.
Okay,
we got the
I-
championship round in front of us.
Yeah, I put it on my engine. It's a draw.
Okay. We got the championship round in front of us. This is a huge penultimate round. I mean, it basically, I'm going to say, decided the challenger.
You think
Whoa,
so?
whoa, back up.
I'm
back
gonna say
up.
it.
Okay, maybe
You're
so.
gonna say it.
Maybe so. There's still a round to play. It's huge. What has to happen next? Karyakin has to collapse with the white pieces, and definitely his chances have gone up. As we said, 80% chance of winning the tournament right now. Yasser saying 100% chance, basically. I think it's probably not too much of a reach, but we have Garry Kasparov on the line from Croatia and certainly has insights as to what happened today. Garry, welcome to the show once again.
I mean, guys, you spent 15 minutes discussing similar position, yes? it's a French player, 250 years ago solved it, without having a computer. Sure. And you spent 15 minutes, discussing, this position because it was just a reverse angle.
Yeah. Good point, Garry.
Good point, Garry. But that said, we got a lot of people.
I mean, I learned it 40 years ago, So
we got a lot of people in the audience who are not Garry Kasparov.
No, it's actually, it's very funny because I was watching the game, but I was outside, so that's why I missed it. I missed about 10 moves, and when I left my just for a walk, my apartment, I saw the fielder position. I said, "Wow, Caruana is in."
Yeah, but
and I came back expecting 1-0, and suddenly I saw draw, and I couldn't believe my eyes.
But Gary,
Because
let's take into consideration that even though it was the fielder
after
position, it was
Bishop
too
D4
late.
and with King on C4 and Rook on B7, and it's I could recognize its fielder position reversed.
Right.
It's King on D6, Bishop on D5. So, and it's just a different color bishop, but it's something that you learn from just
in this position
the
right
early
now,
stage.
yeah.
And I couldn't believe that Swidler could actually make such a simple blunder, because I don't recall when in just lately a strong grandmaster lost Rook and Bishop versus Rook position. I mean, that's the end game. I remember a few games like Gelfand Baccarat, just when I saw it in 2004, and the weak side made a draw without any problems, because two simple fortresses that you should remember.
Right. The Zen position and the Rook on the second rank defense.
But this is again going back to what what we discussed, the previous night, is that just after round 12, it's when you are entering, this competition, and it's round 13, anything can happen.
Right.
Because it's like the law of gravitation can change.
Gary, we have the round 13 in the books, and it's round 14. Essentially, it's a winner. Caruana has to win. You were faced this position in Seville in 1997. You had dropped game 23 to your nemesis and key rival Anatoly Karpov. You had to win, but you had to win with the white pieces on demand.
Exactly. This is any game in history that was won in the last round, the size of the game, I think was won by white. Except maybe we can remember again. This is the interzonal 1990 short beat Grevich with black, but that's interzonal. This is slightly different. It's a Swiss tournament. It's not the same as the round robin or a match.
Okay.
So look, I think Karyakin is a heavy favorite, but again, considering how they play lately, I mean, I still think Caruana has a chance.
Okay, but I mean, come on. It's a marathon tournament. It's round 14. No doubt about it. Everybody's tired. But Sergei's chances have to be huge at this moment.
Absolutely. It depends what you say. What do you mean saying huge? 80%?
80%.
Yeah, but that's about okay. It's just, you know, it's 4-1. Yep.
You too.
No, but still, you know, it's not, you know, it's not fait accompli because you know, he's just one blunder away.
One blunder
away. That's what we.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what America's going to be hoping for tomorrow.
Okay.
Bobby's fans are hoping for that.
Imagine that you were having Fabi at this moment. Tomorrow, Sergey opens with 1d4. What defense opening do you suggest that Fabi has to play, realizing he needs a win?
I don't know. Look, it's, you know, Yasser, you know that, you know, if White plays, you know, any first move, I mean, whether it's d4, e4, knight f3, c4, it's very difficult for Black to, I mean, just to have an opening that could offer them decent winning chances. It's the best chance is actually to probably avoid, you know, sort of easy simplification, early simplification of the position. And if, you know, if after move 20, position is roughly even or Black is slightly worse, but there's still all pieces around, then he has a chance. So you should look for a chance to keep as many pieces aboard as possible at move 20.
And Gary, taking you back again to that huge match in Seville where you needed a must-win situation, the interview I read is that the night before you didn't prepare for game 24, rather you just played cards and took it easy. What was your mindset? That you just wanted to keep as many pieces on the board as possible? Take us through how you did it.
Yeah, but it's yeah, okay. The stake was probably a bit higher than in tomorrow's game. But the idea was fairly simple, you know, just to protract the agony and just to and because Karpov was expected to be sort of to regain the title and to be declared a world champion again, and so I thought, you know, longer we could go, you know, so more the chances that eventually he can make a mistake, and he didn't mistake. He didn't make a mistake.
Very good. Gentlemen, what are our predictor moves?
Well, let's look at the predictions that we had.
I won all 4 results. I remember. I don't remember about others, but
you won all 4 results.
Whoa! That's why this guy's the world
Alejandro
champion and one of the best ever. Incredible result.
Coming back from a 0-4 start. All right, let's take a look at how we did.
0-4 start by Gary?
All right, Anish Giri versus Vachier-Lagrave. We also
I had wishful thinking on this one, guys.
Wishful thinking there.
I was hoping for Anand, but now he's totally knocked out. The trend should have been the same.
The draw there in that game. All right, what happened in the next game? Levon Aronian against Sergei Karyakin. As usual, I'm wrong. So that was also wishful thinking.
But also a crazy up and down game.
Yes, absolutely.
You could have won that one.
I could have, but it didn't happen.
Next
draw
round.
was the result.
Next game.
Caruana against Viller. Again, hope chess there.
Canada looking sharp.
Well, look at
3 out of
Gary
3.
and I. 3 out of 3.
All of us.
Okay, and like the
final?
draw result did hold up in that case.
All right, and in the actually,
you got one right. You and Gary. Bravo, Gary. Gary, bravo. 4-0.
Yeah, okay, but you know, I was lucky. So
so I mean, from starting 0 out of 4, then he got 3 out of 4 and 4 out of 4.
He's improving.
The problem is there's no room for improvement anymore.
You can't go 5-0. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
you just hit the ultimate ceiling.
No, but quite impressive.
7 out of 8, though. Come on, that's pretty
By the way, speaking about the games, you know, this is what I want you just to point out. That is, you know, though not everybody's fighting, you know, just for the right to challenge Magnus, but the quality of the games is still very. I mean, I would say the tension. I don't know about exactly the quality, but the fighting spirit is still there. I mean, look at the Anand Giri match.
Oh, fantastic.
I enjoyed it. I mean, this is a lot of fight. I didn't analyze it. Maybe Giri missed a win, maybe not, but there's a lot of excitement.
Lots of excitement. All right, and well, we have the pairings for tomorrow.
Oh, but sorry, that graphic that our producer flashed.
We can't get it back.
I didn't get a chance to
take it all in.
Let me enjoy that. Holy cow! Guys! I don't. Have I won the competition with 3 rounds to go?
No.
I'm just not last. That's all I care
Still
about.
going to come in last, by the way, depending on the guesses today. But let's point out
You
that
guys are too easy.
tomorrow's games really don't matter except for one game. We can guess all we want, but it's going to be all about one game.
And I know what we're all guessing.
Gary, what are your thoughts on tomorrow's game? If you had to make a guess, what do you think is going to happen?
Look, Karyakin, Caruana, no matter what I want, so just, I have to make a rational choice because we're on a betting line. And the betting line tells me that, anything but draw will be a wrong choice for me to make. Yeah, so Karyakin, Caruana, I think it's a draw because if Karyakin gets a winning position, he'll offer a draw. So that's why, again, it's taking draw, it's a wise choice.
All right.
I mean, I dearly want Fabi to pull it out, of course, but I mean, realistically, it's too big an ask. He's black. I know it's been a marathon tournament. It's a draw.
Okay, I'm gonna go with my heart because let's face it, I'm already last anyway.
You shouldn't even have, you shouldn't even get a say so.
I'm gonna go with Caruana winning tomorrow.
Good.
And everybody would love you.
Exactly, yes. We'd love to lose.
Yeah, this is one I'd love to lose too. I just got to be rational and say draw is what I would assess. If I had to bet my house, draw. So that's all I can say on that one.
It's going to be a draw. Fabiano's been getting bad positions. He even managed to get a bad position against Topalov, who hasn't been getting too many advantages. So no, I think it's going to be a draw, and it's going to be Karyakin just offering it from a good position.
Hey, Gary, you pointed it out. Is that professional behavior? I know it happened to you in New York, Lyon, 1990. In the last round, all you need is a draw, and you clinch. Well, you've already clinched the match, but you offered Gary, you offered Anatoly a draw from essentially a one position. And you're
that's what I said. I'm offering a draw from a position of huge strength.
Of extreme strength, yes.
That's what I said. So it's a direct translation from Russian, what I told you.
Is that what you're supposed to do? I mean, educate our audience. Why did you do that?
Look, I actually, I was, it's kind of a tradition, it's in the World Championship matches. I didn't like it, but 24 games. It was our fifth match, and the few moves to go. I'm with the winning position. But let's not forget, the game was very shaky. So at one point I was not in trouble, but it was quite dangerous. Potentially, I could be in trouble. And I wanted just to relax. This match was so long. Don't forget, also the transition from New York to Lyon, and I looked at this trophy that was next to us, at the table, and okay, just let's get it over. It's already a New Year's Eve. I want this match to be over, and I want to win my fifth match against Karpov and to have 3 quiet years.
Very good. Very, very, very good. So you think if Sergey gets an overwhelming position, he'll offer a draw?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's likely.
Well, let's remember that we're still a little unclear on the rules regarding the head-to-head.
Did you hear this part of the conversation earlier, Gary, that one of the arbiters in Moscow had tweeted that should Vachier-Lagrave win tomorrow and get +2, Sergey Karyakin is still the challenger? Does that conform with what you understand the rules to be?
I don't know. I have no idea. Again, I don't know how does it. This is how they use the tie breaks when the 3 tie. So do they use first, the result between the players?
They said head-to-head first, but it's not clear if they use the result between the 3 players or they go individually. For example, Caruana is under Karyakin in the tie breaks, and he's not ahead in the head-to-head. He's just ahead of the players that tied. So I mean, there's some room for interpretation.
But if they use tie breaks for for all 3 of them, this is the first tie break, the head-to-head, then I think Caruana wins. Yeah.
That's what we thought.
That's what we thought.
That's what we thought as well in the show, which would indicate that Karyakin would not offer a draw in a winning position because, I mean, he would still be risking that somehow Anand wins.
No, but that's interesting because that could be, I mean, that could lead to a perspective in a court case because
how to interpret the rules.
It is an interesting question, how you. It's just clearly, that is the way you read the rules and apply these rules. I mean, could decide a winner if it's if they tie first, second, and third.
It's amazing that's such an unclear rule.
Yeah, then okay. Then I have to correct my statement. Karyakin will offer a draw in overall position if he gets one. Only if Anand's game is draw already.
Very good.
By the way,
and Anand is playing whom tomorrow?
He's black against Fiddler.
I wanted to point out as well, guys, if you go, if
I
they
think it's unlikely. Okay, I think Fiddler Anand, I think it's unlikely Anand, but Anand will try. So we'll see. That's. By the way, that makes it more interesting because I have to watch 2 games, not 1.
Absolutely.
And Anand if Anand wins, he will have more wins, won't he, than anyone else?
Absolutely.
In the tournament. So the head-to-head doesn't resolve everything.
Well, the head-to-head.
No, but Anand will be disqualified in head-to-head because he's worse.
So they would just immediately disqualify him because there's no clarification.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, but then if head-to-head is dominant, in the tiebreak, then Caruana wins. So it'll be quite tricky because it's whether you do it 1 by 1 and then you eliminate Anand and then Caruana loses to Karyakin in number of wins. Or you just you declare head-to-head it's head-to-head should be counted for all 3, and then Karyakin Caruana wins.
Our interpretation was
you write it off completely and then Anand wins.
Guys, this is embarrassing. Hold on, guys. Chess. If you think about all the sports, chess has the oldest pedigree. I mean, come on. We're talking the game of chess, the rules of chess. They've been known for 500 years. Please, you're telling me we're going to a candidates tournament tomorrow, and the night before that final round, we don't know the rules and how they're interpreted? This is shameful.
Wait. What are you talking about? You're talking about the rules of chess, and we're talking about the rules of FIDE.
Sorry, Gary. Thank you for the correction.
It's a gray area. It's era from 70. This is, and it's being played in Moscow. It's well known.
Being played in Moscow.
In Russia, rules are being written, just to be read the way government wants it to be read.
Well, very nice.
Well, I'm sorry.
Thank
this
you,
is
Gary.
a shame. This is a real shame.
Are we going to do predictions? Because it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's one game tomorrow.
Okay, but let's make predictions.
All right.
You want to make predictions, Gary?
Let's go from the top then.
Caruana draw, Fiddler Anand.
Well, let's go back 1 by 1. We got Fiddler Anand tomorrow. We have the graphic for that one. Fiddler Anand, you think is going to be a draw?
I'm going to say draw.
I think I take a draw.
Draw. I mean, I'm already lost. Anand wins. Anand wins.
I want to make sure I don't want to make sure I don't get last. So I'm going to copy Alejandro.
What?
Anand wins.
That is the most ridiculous
I am
thing.
ensuring there's no way he catches up. I'm picking an Anand win to make it a little more interesting.
I will show you the power of the host. Can we see next?
Hold it. I didn't get Maurice.
No, he said draw.
He said draw.
I said draw.
We got it.
I'm going to go with a crazy result. I'm going to pick Peter Fiddler.
Peter's Fiddler.
It's not crazy.
It's not that crazy.
Yasser can say anything he wants. He's
It doesn't matter.
Next. We have Garry Nakamura against Levon Aronian. Eric, what is your prediction?
I'm going with Nakamura to finish off plus 3 wins in a row in the end.
I join. I take Naka.
All right, I need to take something sensible, so I'm going to go with a draw. Because, hey, if I get a draw, I can't pick Nakamura to win, right?
Guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I thought that Hikaru was going to come into this tournament and really make waves. He's only doing it at the very end. It's been very impressive. I got to go with Hikaru Nakamura. He's got the momentum.
He's a fighter, but I just can't do it.
Big bell. Maurice.
He's getting his streak going right now. I haven't picked him in a while. I think Naka, though, he's looking pretty strong.
All right.
And Aronian, after today, total deflation, not winning that game today.
Absolutely.
So no desire to play in this tournament. But Naka with a lot to prove. If he could go +1, that would be, frankly, an amazing result.
A miracle in Moscow.
Fourth
Final
and final game. We have Anish Giri versus Vachier-Lagrave Topalov.
I get to go first.
Does Anish Giri manage to draw 14 in a row, or does Vachier-Lagrave Topalov go -6?
You're first.
I take Giri. Yes.
You take Giri.
I take.
Look, because I like number 13. I want him to stay with 13 draws.
13 draws.
All right. Maurice?
I think he deserves 1 win.
He deserves at least 1 win, Gary.
Okay, he deserves, so okay.
Gary,
I take Giri.
Amongst our panel, you're probably the most knowledgeable in this specific area. Can you recall any candidate's player drawing every single game?
No.
Thank you. Me either. Maurice?
This one's tough. I think Giri is playing, obviously, much better than Topalov in this tournament. So the question is really a toss-up. His trend towards drawing every single game, Topalov looking like he's in a state of complete collapse. I would go with Giri, except his trend has been so powerful. So I'm going to say this one is a draw.
Yeah, I have to go against whatever the Canadian says. I have to say the only sensible choice left. Now, Topalov's not going to win a game, so I'm going to go with the draw.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to.
You have a chance to tie with me, Alejandro. Good for you.
Gary,
I'm going to pass you, baby.
Thank
I'm
you
going
so
to pass
much.
you in round 14.
Okay, guys,
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, Gary.
Big day tomorrow, so I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss tomorrow.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Gary.
Huge day tomorrow for the world of chess. Candidates tournament in Moscow. Last round, it all comes down to one game. Sergei Karyakin with the white pieces needs to apparently hold a draw against Fabiano Caruana from the United States. As you can see, those standings after round 13, it all boils down to one game. This is what we wanted to see. It's the clash between Russia and America in the very final round. The winner of that game, if there is a decisive winner, definitely challenges Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship title in November.
Wow.
Incredible.
Stay tuned, guys. This is the record that they have head-to-head so far. 1 win for Sergei Karyakin, 4 wins for Fabiano Caruana, but it's that big number that scares me. 19 draws between them. Huge amount of equal games. Final words from Maurice Ashley.
Well, Eric, you look at this tournament so far, it's been everything we could hope for in terms of the ups and downs, the thrills and spills, people feeling dejected from missing chances. That one last graphic there, I think it's very important to note that Fabiano is 3 years younger than Sergei Karyakin. Usually when you're the younger player, you took your lumps early. Magnus Carlsen did that to Fabiano early on, winning some games, but since then, Fabi's been able to come back. In this case, Fabi has shown, despite being younger than Sergei, he's been able to take a massive lead, 4-1 in wins. Okay, lots of draws, but that could have also been early on. He padded some of those. So I think a good chance, a little bit better chance there for the Fabi fans, but unfortunately, it's still with the white pieces is Sergei. So I think that it looks very likely that Sergei is going to be the winner. But this tournament has had all its surprises. Anything could happen.
It's nice to see it the last few rounds. The players have really gone for it. I mean, the games have been going longer, risks have been taken. We saw Giri sacrificing a piece today. And tomorrow, I think we're all really looking forward to see what opening Fabiano Caruana and his team have chosen in order to maximize his chances.
He played a Benoni in this tournament so far.
He's so far shown a willingness to take risks, which I love. I love myself. That's why I like Topalov. I like the guys who are willing to go for it and risk it.
And
because if he does lose, though, if Caruana, let's say, loses, not only does he not qualify, but people can catch up to him.
Who cares?
I know,
Who cares?
I know, but
Nobody
it's all it takes. But I'm really looking forward to see what happens.
Tomorrow, huge game. Join us. We'll be here
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Alejandro, what a show tomorrow promises to be.
Absolutely. Today in chess, starting at 12 Central Standard Time with the action from Moscow. Thank you for joining us and see you tomorrow.